Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 861 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today we're hearing of some massive explosions inside of Russia, and also some key bases getting destroyed. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And we have absolutely huge news today, as we have been able to hear that Ukrainian strikes have been able to hit Russian facilities within Kursk, within the occupied areas of Ukraine. And we have also been able to see some supposed picture evidence of an S-500 targeting radar being destroyed by cluster munitions today inside of the area of Sevastopol. We have absolutely massive news to cover tonight on every single level. But before we get into that, I do want to make sure to make the quick announcement that tomorrow is the 4th of July. And the 4th of July is an incredibly special day here in the United States, as it's when the entire nation celebrates its independence from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland over taxes, and then we ended up getting taxes anyways. But beyond that, it is a big holiday in America, and a lot of people love to celebrate it. And funnily enough, we will actually be one of those people that are celebrating the 4th of July tomorrow. And so, the 4th of July will be a channel holiday. We will not be running a live stream tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be running one on the 5th of July at 10 p.m. Eastern Time and covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. I just want to make sure to get that statement out for all of y'all right now as best as I can, because sometimes people don't get the announcements too much, so I want to make sure y'all hear that live on air. But with that, we are now going to be moving on into the major breaking news from today. The massive explosions that have been occurring throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation in the occupied territories of Ukraine that appears to be showing that the Russians are not having a lot of success with the air defense, and not only that, they are taking tremendous losses logistically and communications-wise. But moving on into the area of the village of Vovchansk, which also goes under a different name, we were able to see that a military warehouse caught on fire, and not only that, largely exploded. But we're going to be getting that clip up here if it loads, and I don't know what's going on tonight with the internet, but the internet has been a little slow. But nevertheless, here is the clip.
Да, еще больше.
And it's buffering, but it's still playing. And we can see that the fire is burning. Every once in a while, we see a few slides of it. It's a slideshow after all. And then we can see later on in the day, it had just turned into an absolute fireball over there. As our stream lags, let's see. Hang on. I think I might have a good idea of why we might be lagging a little bit these days, but I'm going to look into that off stream and see if that's the case. But moving on from that, Matty, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, moving on from that and into our next bit of news out of the area of Vovchansk, we were also able to get some really interesting news deep inside of the Russian Federation, near to the area of Yekaterinburg, where we were able to see a huge fire has broken out at Sverdlovsk, which is a town right outside the major city of Yekaterinburg. And really quickly, we're going to be loading this up. And here is the footage. If it loads, and it's finally loaded.
Man, it's looking crazy tonight.
The lag is insane tonight. I have absolutely no idea why. We may actually take a quick intermission here in a moment for me to check on something and see if it is hooked up right and operating right. But here's the clip of the fire in Sverdlovsk. Actually, I'm going to let this clip play really quickly, and I'm going to check something really, really briefly.
And this is a huge fire by the lubricants warehouse on fire. 2,000 square meters, a ton of places on fire. That is wild.
Okay, so...
And apparently, lubricants and fuel burns pretty damn good, too, for a huge fireball.
Man, if only we could understand what you're saying right now. The lag is that bad. It is actually doing horrendous. But we can see the fire continuing to burn. And also, Maddie, I don't know about you, but it's showing that internet reception on my end is actually very poor.
Man, I've got 5 bars over here.
I'm having about 4, maybe 3 bars, depending on the difference, depending on the time. But we can see the fire continuing to burn.
Sounds like it might be a issue with your computer, maybe.
Maybe. It may possibly be. It may be something new that was added recently that isn't really vibing well with the computer. But we see the drone finally starting to land. And we can see it finally landing right here, right near the semi-truck trailer, and then being yoinked by a Russian, and that's the end of that clip. But then we were also able to see the fire from the ground right here in this shorter clip.
Man, I was saying, like, what? Can you hear me now? Like, is it clear?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I was saying earlier, it said in the post it was fuel and lubricants. Apparently, lubricants burns pretty damn well because that's a huge fire right there.
Dude, the thing is huge. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And it does look as though the damage here could be pretty severe for the Russians. But with that, that's the end of that clip. Just making sure to play a little bit more of it so that way you can take a quick little gander at it. And moving on from that, now the area of Yekaterinburg, we are then going to be moving on into the area of the Kursk Oblast, where we were able to see that another explosion was reported inside of the city, and it appears that the damage was fairly significant. If it loads, usually these load a little bit quicker. I gotta be honest with y'all, this is getting a little bit aggravating for me, but still, we can see the fire burning inside of Kursk. We don't know exactly what is on fire, but it is continuing to smolder quite nicely, and it does look as though Ukraine was able to hit another target inside of Kursk and catch it on fire. We are now going to be moving on from that little bit of news, once again getting an idea that a lot of stuff is catching on fire inside the Russian Federation and also within the occupied areas of Ukraine. We are starting to get a little bit of an idea that some of this may be partisan attacks, and thank you, Griffin Provenzano. That is crazy right there.
Provenzano freaking threw in a max.
That is insane. Huge thank you to you. But nevertheless, moving on from that, we will get back to that here in a second, but that is unbelievable, Griffin Provenzano. Thank you so much once again for that unbelievable support. But moving on from that and out of the Kursk area, we are starting to get a fairly big idea that the Ukrainian partisans, or pro-Ukrainian partisans within the Russian Federation, are starting to inflict a pretty decent amount of damage onto the Russian Federation forces that are within the area. We are starting to assume that these partisans are starting to show heightened levels of activity thanks to the decline of the Russian military and also the Russian war industry that is starting to show serious strains not only on the Russians' ability to wage war, but also on the Russian economic level as well. And so these partisans are starting to become emboldened because of this and are beginning to conduct more and more attacks on Russian Federation infrastructure, hoping to try and knock them out of the war even quicker. Moving on from that, however, we were able to get some very shocking news from the area of Sevastopol today, as we got the huge news that there was a possible hit that we were able to at least see with picture evidence on an S-500 radar array. According to the information that we have, this happened just about today, and it was supposedly shared that a radar, which we really can't see in this picture, was hit somewhere within this cluster round that was apparently discharged by an ATACMS missile that landed in the area. Based on what we're assuming right now, this may mean that the S-500 system is knocked out. The S-500, much like many older S-300 and S-400 systems, have two different kinds of radars, a targeting radar and an acquisition radar. Going off of that, considering that one of those radars was knocked out and the battery largely requires both to function properly, either the S-500 is going to be operating almost blind or it's completely blind at this point and the S-500 has been knocked out. We don't know that for certain, though, because this picture is really low quality. I think everyone can see that pretty well. It's about a 480p picture, so we can't really see enough to be able to confirm what kind of destruction and what kind of loss was had by the Russian Federation in this cluster attack. But if that is the case, we will be able to know very, very clearly that the Russian Federation is in dire straits. It's now the only air defense system they largely have within the area. It may have been knocked out just overnight. Now, I do want to say this really quickly to dispel some things that may already be said. Some people may possibly say that the S-500 has already been destroyed and has been destroyed for some time because we heard someone make a unfounded claim about a week ago and now it's finally happened. That is not the case. We never had picture or video evidence at this point, up to this point, till today, of a possible destruction of any part of the S-500 battery. Everything up till that point was unconfirmed and largely untrue because we didn't have enough proof to be able to back up the fact that the S-500 had been hit at all. And now we are seeing that the Ukrainian artillery group Tivas put out today that they possibly destroyed an air defense radar with a cluster ATACMS munition. That is something that we will have to wait and see even a little bit more if it's true. We can kind of get an idea that possibly an S-500 battery system has been hit, but I don't really want to make that a definitive or clear statement because obviously this picture quality is quite low, and it's really hard to get a lot out of this picture. But a lot of people are probably wondering, what has happened to the S-500 system? Do y'all think that it actually may have been knocked out at this point? Or do y'all think that it may still be out there somewhere and the Ukrainians maybe hit something else, but due to the poor quality of the footage they were receiving, they assumed it was an S-500 radar? Let me know in the live chat what y'all are thinking about that, because I would be very interested to know. But let's talk about the implications of what is going to happen if the S-500 radar has been knocked out. If the S-500 radar system was destroyed, like we are assuming is the case right now, this will be a death knell for all remaining Russian assets within Crimea. As many of y'all will remember, the S-500 was moved into position inside of Crimea to pretty much replace all of the S-300 and S-400 air defense systems that were being transferred into the area of Belgrade. And we understand that those air defense systems have currently been deployed inside of Belgrade. That S-500 is supposed to cover the entirety of the peninsula. And the fact that this radar may have been destroyed may mean that there is absolutely nothing left at all for the air defense in Crimea. That means that everything in Sevastopol is a target, everything in Yevpatoria, Simferopol, Dzhankoy, Kerch, anything in between, Feodosia, literally any single part of the Crimean Peninsula could end up being a target. And that is huge news for Ukraine, as that means that they will probably be able to destroy a large amount of vital Russian military equipment, or make it so untenable for Russian forces to stay within the oblast that they really can't. But with that, I hope that does kind of cover the situation that we're sort of seeing a little bit right now in Crimea the best I can. And moving on from that, we also got to see something really interesting today within the area of the Baltic Sea. We were able to see that a Kilo-class diesel-electric submarine was sailing through the area, and this was apparently spotted by a Portuguese P-3C Orion maritime surveillance aircraft during a NATO-led patrol operation in the Baltic Sea this week, or last week. And we were able to see this Rostov-on-Don submarine sailing, not submerged, fully unsubmerged in the Baltic Sea. And I gotta say that the quality of this picture was very high, actually, from the distance that this P-3 Orion is watching this Kilo-class submarine from.
Man, they've got some good cameras on that thing, I'm telling you what. Also, was that the same one that was down in Cuba a while back, or is this a different one?
This is a different one. The Kilo-class submarines are largely a diesel-electric powered submarine. The one that we saw in the area of Cuba, it was, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was a nuclear-powered submarine. It was the Yasin-class fast attack submarine. And let me go type that in. Yasin-class submarine. Looks like I may have spoken too soon. Also, Matthew, are you hearing me well right now?
I'm hearing you well, but there's a massive delay.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that. But here is the Yasin-class fast attack submarines that are nuclear-powered. These were actually made after the fall of the Soviet Union in very limited numbers, but this was one of the ones that we saw inside of Cuba. A completely different class and completely different abilities than the Kilo-class submarine that we're seeing here, which is a lot cheaper but more affordable for the modern Russian Federation.
Interesting to see. Well, like you said, though, that's a very clear photo of the thing, and to see it up close like that from a surveillance craft in the public, that's crazy to see.
It is pretty crazy to see. I will have to say that 100%. And also, I like, Matthew, how we're pretty much talking over Morse code right now, and it takes about a business day for my message to get to you, and then for you to say something back on my end. This is like a whole 30-second delay. But still, really cool to see this Kilo-class submarine out there in the Baltic, and really neat to know that a P-3 Orion operated by the Portuguese Air Force was able to spot this thing and be able to show it to all of us what kind of surveillance abilities NATO does have in its tool belt, even for countries like Portugal, which aren't really known for their military prowess, but still have some very competent military equipment. However, while we are talking about the greatness of NATO and what they've been able to achieve technologically, we also got some pretty shocking news out of the headquarters of NATO today inside of Brussels, Belgium. This news has been something that has been really making the rounds today, and a lot of Russian propagandists have really taken this and run with it, saying that this is showing that the war is pointless to support Ukraine because they are just so corrupt that no one really wants them. But I will be telling y'all what came out today and what we were able to hear, and then asking y'all what y'all think about it, because I'm very interested about this. But NATO will request. We've been able to hear this today. It will happen, and I believe at this moment it is in the process of happening while we're live. NATO will request additional steps from Ukraine before progressing with membership talks, according to a senior U.S. State Department official. This position will be outlined in the NATO communique at the annual summit on July 9th. While recognizing Ukraine's reform efforts over the past 2 years, the official emphasized the need for further steps, particularly in anti-corruption, which remains a priority for many NATO members. This is showing that the path to Ukrainian NATO membership is going to be very difficult and still going to be a little bit of a path ahead of them, because NATO does not believe that anti-corruption efforts have been wildly successful in Ukraine and have been able to stamp out or corral most corruption within the country. From what we understand, that may possibly be true. President Zelensky has also openly stated during the course of the war that corruption has been fairly rife, not only in the judicial system of the Ukrainian government, which was generally Putin's anti-corruption campaigns pre-war, but we've also started to hear that there has been some corruption popping up within the border guards and some sparse levels of corruption popping up within the Ukrainian armed forces itself. Of course, the Ukrainian SBU, in cooperation with the central government of Ukraine, has been working practically tirelessly to try and deal with these corruption issues that are happening inside of Ukraine. But nevertheless, corruption is always a bit of a difficult thing to deal with. Many countries have been having massive issues with their anti-corruption campaigns, not really achieving the kind of success that they would want. And that also brings us over to the People's Republic of China. Very recently, we've started to hear that Xi Jinping's anti-corruption efforts within the People's Liberation Army are not proving as fruitful as they would hope. Those anti-corruption efforts or anti-corruption campaigns have been ongoing in China since 2017, and even still, Xi Jinping and the People's Liberation Army support forces have been finding that an unbelievable amount of corruption has gone under the radar. Many of y'all may remember the very famous story that came out a while ago about how some Chinese missiles had their propellant replaced with water, so that way the propellant in the missiles could be traded on the black market. Many of y'all will remember that story. And it's something that we know will end up posing a problem. Even for a very large and economically powerful country like China, fighting corruption is just wildly difficult. And it seems as though, according to NATO, Ukraine may have some time to go. And a lot of people are wondering, is that a fair decision for NATO to make, or for NATO to say about Ukraine, is that they still have a problem with corruption and need to overcome it? And a lot of people are saying that it's actually a fair decision, which is a little bit shocking. Some other people are saying that, no, Ukraine must join NATO soon, regardless if NATO believes there's still a decent amount of corruption inside the country. Others are saying that it doesn't matter, the war is on, and they should just get into NATO anyways. It doesn't really matter, it'll be sorted out later. And others are a little bit unsure and undecided. But a lot of people have been talking about this, and a lot of people have been weighing in their opinions. And Matthew, so many people have thrown in their opinions tonight, and I want to know, what are their opinions on this, and what are your opinions on this as well?
So on this poll, it looks like 39% of the audience said it is a fair decision for now, while 25% said no, Ukraine must join NATO sooner than that, and 22% said it really doesn't matter because war is on and they can't join anyway. And we can't get confused on the question here. The question is, can they start NATO talks now or later? This is not actually about Ukraine joining NATO right this instant, because there is an article in NATO which does not allow countries at war to join while they're still in the conflict. So obviously Ukraine's still at war, so they can't join NATO. This is simply starting the accession talks for Ukraine to eventually get in the future. And to me, I see no reason why the talks should not start right now. It doesn't matter that Ukraine still has some corruption problems, because every country out there has corruption to some level. And it sounds like Ukraine is trying their best to stamp it out, and they're not letting it run rampant like this question right here would lead you to believe, and also like NATO would tend to lead you to believe as well. So they should at least start the negotiations, discuss ways to further stamp out the corruption, and don't just call off the talks simply because there's some problems still to be solved. So for me, I'm with the 25% actually. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that there probably is a little bit of corruption in Ukraine, still higher than the normal level found within most of NATO. And I'm seeing some very interesting comments here in the chat. People saying the United States is more corrupt than Ukraine. And I would generally have to say, of course, might be biased because I'm an American, I generally have to disagree with those kinds of sentiments. We do have to remember that at the start of the war in Ukraine, according to public charts and figures, Ukraine was a fairly corrupt country. It is a post-Soviet country, and for a large part of its post-Soviet history, it has either been almost in the Russian world or very close to the Russian world. The Russian world naturally encourages and really promotes a high level of corruption in its basic government institutions, meaning that really up until 2014 during the Revolution of Dignity, or what some people call the Maidan Head riots or the Maidan Revolution, Ukraine was largely a Russian-aligned country, and for that reason, a lot of its institutions, of course, post-Soviet and heavily inspired by the former Soviet Union, of course, massively encouraging corruption, just like we see in the Russian Federation today, corruption was never really tamed or tempered at all inside of Ukraine until very recently, until the arrival of Petro Poroshenko, who was the president in Ukraine that reformed the Ukrainian armed forces from the Soviet-style purely conscript armed forces that we saw during the Donbass conflicts of 2014 and during the annexation of Crimea, and then turned it into the professional army that we saw that began the defense of Ukraine in 2022. There is another thing that we have to point out is that Zelensky has continued on the anti-corruption campaigns that were started off informed by Petro Poroshenko, but were really taken to the next level by Volodymyr Zelensky. But you have to remember that you're taking a country that was fairly corrupt, of course not as corrupt as Russia. Russia is on a whole other level really compared to anyone else in the world. But Ukraine was not that far off, at least in the graphs and the information that was put out before the war began. And Zelensky was starting from a pretty much blank slate and having to build the groundwork up for anti-corruption campaigns and rooting out these people who were massively corrupt. In my opinion, I'd have to say that while Zelensky has certainly made a lot of effort and has done a lot of great things in the anti-corruption sphere for Ukraine, I would still have to say that from what we can tell, there probably is a little ways to go before the corruption is completely combated and completely defeated inside of Ukraine, or at least brought down to a level that the Western world would largely be acceptable of. The thing is, and I have to put this out there a little bit, the thing is that in Ukraine, right now, from what we understand, you can bribe a border guard to be able to cross the border into a foreign country. In the United States, if you did that, that probably would not work. I've very rarely heard of bribery attempts. Saying what?
Oh no, man! I also we're going to try to work with that delay right there. It's a little bit wild because it's like 10-second long delay. But I would say that Ukraine does have that problem. Like there are border guards being bribed and things like that, and obviously that's not good. But I don't think for 1 second that that's also not happening here in the United States as well. It's just simply not reported on because people are people. People are going to naturally want to take bribes, and there are corruption or corrupt people in pretty much every institution out there. So I would say it's probably happening here. It's just not being reported on quite like it is in Ukraine.
But there is a difference in levels of corruption, though. Of course, there's no such thing as an uncorrupt country or a uncorruptible country. But the thing is that there is different levels, and it would be amiss to say that some countries are more, the same as others. Like saying the People's Republic of China is as less or as uncorrupt as Finland. I feel like that those kinds of statements would be really hard to make because they'd be a little untrue.
Maybe, but me personally, I would say that while Ukraine does have a slightly higher level than other countries with corruption, in my opinion, they should at least go ahead and start the negotiations to at least lay out the framework that Ukraine needs to meet in order to fix those problems. Because, in my opinion, we're not saying that we're guaranteeing NATO's going to get into, or excuse me, Ukraine's going to get into NATO. We're not guaranteeing that. We're simply laying out what needs to be done for Ukraine to eventually get into the organization. So without the talks, it's really hard to even know how much progress Ukraine needs to make before they're allowed into it.
But one thing I would quickly like to point out is Nicholas Condor is a viewer of this channel who has been around for an incredibly long time. And Nicholas Condor just threw in a story of when he was in Ukraine. And he said, when I was in Ukraine, people making a church had to not only pay for the bricks, but give a bribe to the factory manager to get the bricks. That's the kind of corruption you deal with inside of Ukraine. You know, it's being fixed, but there is still that kind of a level of corruption that would really take people by surprise sometimes here in the West. You know, it's like, that's a little bit severe. Or, better yet, we have heard of instances of corruption that have happened specifically. This is some of the few that we've ever really heard about, but the Ukrainian government has brought it up several times in the past. Specifically, forms of corruption that have happened in the International Legion of Ukraine, which has been a little bit bizarre. But we're not going to get into that too much on stream, but it is something that we've heard about in the past. It's something that's raised a little bit of an eyebrow. I would be entirely honest. I don't think I don't think that Ukraine will never get in NATO. I think that they just have to go a little bit further with dealing with corruption and making sure to really tack down the anti-corruption efforts and have successful ones, which they're starting to get now. It's just a little whiles away. And then be able to enter NATO at that point, because we can't have too high of a corruption entering NATO, because it could start to spread, or it could start to support somewhat not so savory elements in other areas of NATO. But I would still have to say Ukraine has done incredibly well. Zelensky has done wildly well with anti-corruption efforts so far, and I would say that they certainly have made a lot of leeway, a lot of groundwork, and really just have to keep trucking along, and they will be able to enter NATO. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. But Matthew, I also heard something else really interesting that was happening down in the area of Lebanon. We were actually able to hear news today, of course speaking about the Middle Eastern situation and the rising tensions within this region, that within the city of Tyre, or as some people would call it Tyre, because that's kind of how it's spelled in English, a Hezbollah commander was actually killed by an Israeli airstrike. And we're starting to see that the Israelis are getting a lot more open about their attacks on Hezbollah forces inside of southern Lebanon as they prepare for their ground invasion into the area.
Sounds like chaos out there.
It does sound like chaos. It really does. And from what we understand, the Hezbollah commander was Abu Ali Nasir, and apparently, or Nasser, was reportedly the head of Hezbollah's Aziz unit, responsible for one of the 3 sectors in South Lebanon. Because, funnily enough, Hezbollah actually has military districts like major countries. But nevertheless, it does appear that the Israelis are continuing their airstrikes against Hezbollah forces and are really starting to get into that pre-invasion preparation, doing some decapitation strikes, trying to knock out commanders that are in charge of specific areas within southern Lebanon, hopefully spurring...
Also, Israel's keeping that Soleimani curse alive, because the guy who just got taken out today, who's one of the top senior Hezbollah commanders, that guy was with Soleimani just like all the other ones that have been taken out by Israel. So I think pretty much if somebody met with Soleimani before his death, they have a limited time span in front of them. Israel seems to be taking out each and every one of those people that met with that guy before he passed.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, like, they got a V for a vendetta against anyone who met with Soleimani. And Soleimani got obliterated. By the way, just to bring y'all back in time, Soleimani got absolutely glassed outside the Baghdad International Airport on the ramp. And let me see if I can find y'all the airport and show y'all the specific ramp he was on. He was actually on this turn right here near the airport, if it loads in. I'm so sorry about the internet connection, y'all. It is really rough today, but it was around this turn right here on the airport that Soleimani got freaking glassed by a Ukrainian drone. Well, not a Ukrainian drone, an American drone in the area, and ended up obliterating him and his entourage right there on the spot. And since then, we have seen that the IDF has been taking out pretty much every single commander in Hezbollah, and not only in Hezbollah, but also in Hamas, which ever met with Soleimani since then. Also, what's really crazy, Matthew, is that Saddam Hussein's palace was literally just right beside the airport. I never even knew that.
Man, he was ready to get out of there for a long time. He said, build that thing right next to the place where I can escape, because I need to be able to go. And he went. Dude,
he did. He went. I guess you could say... I guess you could say, man, that he wasn't really Iraq anymore. He was Iran. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean.
He ran. That's for sure. He didn't stay. That's for certain.
Man, I got to say, though, one thing that's weird, though, is that Saddam Hussein, an Iraqi leader, Iran, but then at the same time, the president of Iran, Raisi, didn't ran, he flew, or something along those lines. It wasn't really. It was a really big twist of events. You know, kind of like a double whammy, you know, like complete opposites. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are going to be moving on out of the region and on up into the area of Turkey, because we were able to hear some very interesting things out of Turkey today. Also, I just got to ask this, y'all. Do y'all like the new name for Turkey, the one that has the T, the U with the accents, RKIYE, or do y'all like the old Turkey where it was spelled like Thanksgiving turkey? Man, when they talking about Turkey nowadays, it's like, man, I don't know Turkey, I know Turkey. But anyways, moving on from that, we were able to...
reminds me of the chia.
Dude, it really does, man. I'm telling you, man, that was pretty slick right there. But we were able to see that a new Ada-class corvette is on trial right now. Not on trial for any kind of a crime, but it's on sea trials at the moment inside of Turkey before they hand it over to the Ukrainian Navy. This is a Turkish-built corvette, and let me go really quickly pull up the Ada-class so that way we can get some more information on it. If this will load up really quickly, and it is loading up lightning fast on the second screen. It is so quick. It's unbelievable. So, according to the information that we have, the operators of this vessel are the Turkish naval forces, the Pakistan Navy, the Royal Malaysian Navy, and also the Ukrainian Navy, this is one of the ones that is slated to be sent to the Ukrainian Navy. This one is also called the, let's see, the Githman Ivan Masipa, or Masipa, something along those lines. But still, a really interesting corvette. Apparently, only 6 of these have been completed, and this one is slated already to be handed over to Ukraine. Its displacement is a little bit small at only 2,400 tons. It has a length of 326 feet, a beam of 47, and a draft of 12. It has a pretty decent power plant on board of about 42.5 thousand horsepower, and it also has, let's see here, a top speed of 35 miles per hour, which is booking it for this kind of a vessel.
Now, the last time I heard, the Corvette, the last time I heard, had a top speed of 180 miles an hour, and it had a V8. So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Man, it's suffering a little bit of downgrades these days, especially when you put them in water. They don't tread water too well. But they also have a pretty extensive range of about 4,000 miles at its most economical speed of 15 knots. And let's see here. What else can we find out about this vessel? Sensor and processing systems, and we won't read that. We'll just read the armament. It has one main gun, the 76 millimeter that you can see up on the front. That's actually a really cool story about that, but we won't get into that here. It also has several 50 caliber machine guns. It has 2 of them, and then it is able to carry 8 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, or Atmakas, which are a Turkish-made anti-ship missile. They also have a entire Ram Block 1 on board for anti-aircraft warfare, and not only that, it is able to carry 2 324 millimeter torpedoes, which is a pretty interesting complement for a modern corvette like this. It's actually a pretty beefy corvette as far as corvettes go, and it is also able to carry 1 S-70B Seahawk, which is the naval version of a Black Hawk helicopter. Overall, this thing is not a bad vessel whatsoever. It's actually a pretty nice one, and it reminds me a lot of the Freedom class littoral combat ships that the United States Navy put into service a little bit of a while ago. And let me go see if I can pull up the LCS-1 and show that to y'all right here. Let me go get that. Let me go grab it. Let me go grab it. Let me go get it. It's loading in right now. Hang on, everyone. Hang tight, everyone. Let me go grab it. Let me go get it. All right, it's almost here. All right. Doesn't it look a lot like the Freedom class, Matthew?
It looks pretty close, actually. Like, it's very close to resembling that.
It's insanely close. I'm not gonna lie, dude. It's like, when in the world did they come up with making this? So let's see. The first one was commissioned in 2008. Wait a minute, have all of them been decommissioned? Oh, wait a minute, sorry. It's just the USS Freedom. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is the flagship, well, not really the flagship, but the lead ship of the class. But still, this one was apparently already decommissioned in 2021. Kind of crazy because it was a really short lifespan for this thing, and I think it's because they were running into structural cracking issues, if I remember correctly. But nonetheless, the Ada-class corvette, I don't think is as new. And let me pull that up. The Ada-class corvette right here. And moving on from that, this one was built from 2005 to the present day, put into service in 2011. So really, it's actually almost an identical time frame to the Freedom class corvettes. They pretty much were just made at an identical time frame and ended up looking really similar. But I would bet that they probably don't have a lot similar in between the two. But still, very interesting to note that they look like that. But still, a lot of people have been talking today about what's happening in Israel while we've moved on a little bit out of the region and up into the area around Turkey. And a lot of people are saying that within the area of Lebanon, The Israeli airstrike that occurred today that ended up taking out a senior Hezbollah commander within the area of the border region has probably elevated a war to being, of course, a certainty at this point. A lot of people have been weighing in on what they believe about that, whether it really is a certainty or if it isn't. And a lot of people are saying that war is inevitable at this point. War is coming to the region. Others are saying that there is no threat of war and the status of the region remains largely the same. Others are saying that they're a little bit unsure, and some people are saying that war will never happen there ever. But a lot of people have been throwing in different comments. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about the ongoing tensions rising within the Israel-Lebanon area and what it may result in here in the future?
All right, so 61% of the audience said, yes, war is almost a certainty at this point, while 24% said, no, the threat of war remains the same, and about 3% said war will never happen there. And I can tell you for a fact that war in the Middle East is basically a certainty. It's just a matter of time when it actually happens. That region's always at war. So for a war not to be happening, that's kind of rare. But right now, we can see here that the Israelis took out another senior Hezbollah commander. And in my opinion, that makes war almost a certainty. I know some people are going to think, well, you know, they just took out the senior guy, so wouldn't that make them somewhat disorganized? And that's really not the way these organizations work. Like, for example, Hezbollah, they pretty much plan ahead for their people to get taken out because they know how soon and how fast the Israelis can pull that off. They can literally knock anybody off they want at any point and pretty much have a pretty high effectiveness rate on that. So to me, I don't think it's going to affect their command structure very much. I think they probably have somebody ready to go to replace the person that was just killed, and war is probably almost a certainty in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say war is certainly a certainty. I would say not really for the fact that they killed the commander, because then they wiped out an entire squad of them. Remember, Matthew, in Damascus, they literally just obliterated like a mass group of Hezbollah commanders all in one go. So I would have to say I don't really think it's a beginning for a conflict just because of the killing of this commander. I think it's more so a overarching part of the large umbrella that we know a war is coming. So I would say, yes, war is inevitable, not really for the fact that the Hezbollah commander getting killed today, just because of the massive Israeli buildups that are happening on the border and the constant Israeli rhetoric that they will be going to war with Hezbollah, invading southern Lebanon, and attempting to destroy them because they are not stopping their hostile actions against the state of Israel. So I hope that that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And now it's time for us to, weirdly enough, mesh the two regions together, the Middle East and Ukraine, into one piece of news. Because Turkey, largely a country that is mostly within the Middle East, or really in the area of Asia Minor, which is the region that Turkey is in, we were able to hear today that Turkey has offered to broker a peace agreement in between Ukraine and the Russian Federation again. This is something that has been brought up time and time again in the past, and a lot of people, including myself, have believed that while Turkey does Turkey things, Turkey may be the only country that is in the entire region, really in the entire world, in my opinion, that is in a position where while they are supporting Ukraine, they may be able to actually broker a peace in between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And they usually ended up being the primary peace broker, or at least negotiations broker, at the start of the conflict. Not really pushing either side to give larger concessions than the other, but trying to find some sort of common ground. Nevertheless, Turkey has said that they can help achieve a ceasefire and then sign a peace agreement. And according to what we have here from Nexta, Erdogan told Putin on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana, which is the capital of Turkey, which I'll show you. I'll write down. Actually, hang on. Wait a minute. What am I talking about? Hang on. Oh, get the hell out of here. It's in Kazakhstan. Sorry, everyone. Correction. That's the capital of Kazakhstan. But beyond that, the Turkish president office reported this, so we know that it is, in fact, true. According to the direct quote, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, said, a just peace that satisfies both sides is possible. And that is something that is very interesting because it does look like, once again, Erdogan is attempting to broker a peace in between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. This is something that I'd have to say is a little bit bizarre. Also, I'd like to note how small of a manlet Putin looks like in this picture. I mean, Erdogan looks like he could just pick the guy up and throw him out a window. Like, you know, like no joke.
Yeah, for real, man. That's a height difference is crazy, by the way. Although I will say this, in fairness, though, not that I'm trying to be fair or anything like that, but in fairness, Zelensky is pretty short himself. Like, it's kind of weird here. The two leaders warring are pretty short guys.
Yeah, you know, it is a little weird. Like, how tall is Erdogan? How tall is Erdogan? 6'1". He's shorter than us, dude. Like, we are taller than Erdogan. Dude, if we stood near Putin, we look like freaking giants, dude.
Really, we would.
Dude, we would be crushing the guy. Like, we could just push him around a little bit, you know, like just knock him around a little. But still, that's bizarre to see how short Putin really is. But yeah, you know, that's how tall is he? Is he like 5'6", or 5'5" or something? 5'7". I think Zelensky is just like an inch shorter than him. 5'7". Wait a minute, they're the same height, dude. They're the same freaking height. Like, so Putin and Zelensky are both 5'7". Like, I'm not gonna lie, y'all.
I still tell you, Zelensky would whoop Putin's ass though in a fight. I could tell you that for a fact.
I think he would. I think he would, like, no doubt. But that is wild, man. They're actually kind of short, you know, because for some reason, y'all, like, I'm not saying that 5'7" is that short, because really it's just a little bit below the average height of a normal male. We were kind of like freaks being 6'2" and all that stuff. But beyond that, what is bizarre about this is that you always imagine world leaders to be exceptionally tall. I don't know if y'all all do that, but for some reason in my head, they're always like 6'3" or something in my mind. And then you see that they're like 5'7". They're like smaller than most average people, which is really weird. Like, it's really weird. But still, very interesting to see them, of course, meeting and talking about brokering a peace. And a lot of people have been really talking about this idea that Turkey might be able to draw the two sides together and somehow hammer out a peace that would work for both sides. Of course, no one would be happy with it, but it would be a peace that both sides would accept. That's usually the compromise. But a lot of people have been talking about this fair peace plan that Erdogan has brought forth, and a lot of people have been putting in their comments, and a lot of people are saying that it won't work, but we'll see. And some people are saying that Ukraine should tell Erdogan to stay out of Ukraine's affairs and out of trying to broker a possible peace agreement. Some people are saying that Ukraine should 100% entertain Erdogan, and others are saying that they're unsure and undecided. But Matthew, a lot of people have been throwing in loads of opinions on this and giving their two bits on whether Ukraine should accept this or whether it won't really get anywhere, or whether Ukraine should just turn down Erdogan and tell him to go mind his own business. A lot of people have been throwing in their comments. And Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so the answers to this poll question are pretty much all over the place. It looks like 40% said it probably won't work with Erdogan, but let's see. While 35% said Ukraine should tell Erdogan to stay completely out, and only 17% said Ukraine should 100% entertain Erdogan. And on this one, it's a little bit hard to go into the 17% option, because for Ukraine to entertain Erdogan's proposal, they kind of have to semi-trust Erdogan. And with Turkey doing the famous Turkey flip-flop routine, where they really don't know who they support, and they're also playing both sides of the fence, it's really hard for me to advocate for Ukraine to trust them in any way. So I would agree with the enforcer that if anybody had the best chance of probably brokering a peace, it would be Turkey. But even at that, it's not really a good chance. So in my opinion, I wouldn't tell Erdogan to stay out, though, because that seems like the wrong thing to do, to try to piss off Turkey intentionally. I would probably say give it a go. Let's see what he has to say, but it probably won't work out. So I'm really with the 40%. But really, though, I just can't put much trust into Turkey, because right now they're really going kind of anti-Western. I'm not really a big fan of their country because of their government, and I'm sure Ukraine is kind of on the fence with that too. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's a really weird position. And you know, Matthew, you know what is about to happen. I'm about to have to go down a rabbit hole of Turkey and what they're doing right now. Turkey does Turkey things, and everyone knows that is pretty much an ancient proverb on this channel. We've been saying that ever since the war began. Turkey does Turkey things, because Turkey is Turkey. And a lot of people would say that they're an enigmatic being, and there's really no way to explain what Turkey does, but there actually is a way to explain why Turkey does what they do. Turkey is doing the things that they're doing, whether they be pro-Western or anti-Western, in turn, because they are attempting to build a mini-sphere within the Western sphere. And it's a little bit of a weird thing, because Turkey is actually trying to create its own pole in the world. Many people will hear that there is a unipolar or multipolar world, and that the world is kind of shifting towards being a multipolar world nowadays, meaning that there are multiple major powers with different spheres of influence. The Turks are actually trying to create their own separate one from everyone else. It's not going to be Russian, it's not going to be Chinese, it's not going to be Western, it's going to be a Turkish sphere. And the way that they're planning on doing this is by making themselves look like they are the next caliphate, to put that in better words, in the Middle East. And that goes deeply into Islamic history and Islamic doctrine and all that stuff. But we won't go into all of that here on stream because that is way too complicated to get into. But beyond that, the Middle East is looking for a nation for guidance. And right now, Turkey is trying to position themselves to be that group. That's why they are conducting military intervention in Syria, not just against the Assad regime, but against the Western-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. And that's also why they're condemning Israel as well, because Israel is generally tolerated by some countries, but mostly unliked within the Middle East. And that means that if Turkey comes out and condemns Israel, well, they start to look like the strongman to a lot of these Middle Eastern countries. And that means they're going to start looking to Turkey for being the leader of the region. Not only that, when they look into the area of Central Europe, or really the Balkans and Eastern Europe for the most part, they see massive economic opportunity. Guess what every single country in the Balkans has to deal with to be able to trade their goods? Turkey. They have to go through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, and that means the Turks have a lot of control over the economic abilities of all of the countries in the Black Sea, including Russia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Ukraine. And that is why y'all will see, just like a second ago I was talking about, they are willing to provide military support to Ukraine because they are trying to make Ukraine think that Turkey has their best interests in mind and that they are a strong country that Ukraine should have incredibly good relations with in the future. Even if it is a smaller sphere of influence that they would be a part of, Turkey could certainly lead it. And Turkey could help out economically and militarily with Ukraine. And they're also doing the same thing with the Balkans as well. They are offering massive amounts of monetary incentives to Balkans countries to try and get on their side. And not only that, are funding a massive Danube economic project to try and draw in every single country that has access to the Danube River into a pretty much mega river chain of countries that would be part of a Turkish sphere. So anything that furthers this idea of creating a sphere for Turkey is something that Turkey will do, regardless whether it is in line with Western interests or not. If it isn't in line with creating this brand new Turkish sphere, then they aren't going to do it, and they aren't going to go forward with it. So going off of that, and knowing that about Turkey, Turkey probably can broker a peace in between the two sides, and Ukraine might want to listen, because one thing we know for certain, Turkey is not going to go Russian. And of course, a lot of people will go, because we've said so much about Turkey in the past, people will go, oh, you never know, they could go Russian. They're not going to go Russian, but they're not going to be extremely unfriendly to Russia either. And that's what makes them a possible negotiator in a peace talk, because they seem to be amenable to both sides. Although Turkey will, of course, take Ukraine's side over Russia's side. That's why Turkey provides Ukraine military support and they don't provide the Russians squat, is because they know that Ukraine will become their economic partner in the future if they play this well. Russia will never do that. So going off of that...
But ultimately, though, do you really think that anybody, not just Turkey or any other country, but is there really anybody that can really negotiate the end to the war in Ukraine? Because at the end of the day, Zelensky's not going to give up territory. He's made that very clear. And honestly, I support that 100%. Ukraine should not give up territory. But at the same time, Russia is not willing to walk off from these zones which have already taken. They're not willing to leave. They're very determined about not leaving that stuff. In my opinion, this is just me, I don't think there's anybody in the world right now that can negotiate a successful end to this war that meets both parties' expectations that they would actually agree to. I simply don't think that's possible right now. Maybe further on down the road when one side, like for example, Russia gets more desperate, maybe they'll be more pliable at that point and maybe a peace can be sort of brokered. But right now, we're simply not there yet. I don't think it's going to happen.
I would say I would agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But if someone could do it, it probably will be Turkey.
I will say possibly so, but at the same time, though, I think Turkey might sort of like give in to those Russian kind of like leanings they kind of have. And whatever they end up negotiating, they're going to sort of always lean Russian. If it comes down to like they're in doubt about something, they're going to lean toward Putin. That's just my opinion. I know they're trying to play the fence, but they do have a little bit of a bias, and it's toward Russia.
Yeah, well, if that was the case, Matthew, why would they be providing weapons to Ukraine to help them to fight the Russians?
because they play both sides of the fence. But at the same time, though, just because they provide some Bayraktars and they let their country or their companies provide that to Ukraine, that doesn't mean that if it came down to a contest, an equal contest between Ukraine and Russia, if they had to pick a side to sort of lean toward, in my opinion, they're going to pick the Russian side.
I would generally have to say I think I disagree with that a little bit, because Turkey doesn't want, like, the modern Turkey that we're seeing, they don't want to really be that big of a friend with Russia. Sure, they're not going to be unfriendly to them or hostile to them openly, but they're not going to be massive friends with them, and they're not going to try and become a part of the Turkish sphere. And there's also a huge ideological difference in between Turkey and Russia that occurred over centuries, because the number one enemy of the Russian Empire in kind of the Soviet Union was the Ottoman Empire, and then in the modern day, Turkey. And then the number one enemy for the Turks was the Russians. So there is a lot of cultural difference there that still isn't really being overcome. And we have known in the past that Turkey has taken hostile action against the Russians, not in the war in Ukraine, but in previous times, in previous decades, they have done actions against the Russian Federation. So I would generally believe that the Turks wouldn't side with Russia, but at the same time, they're not going to go lock in step, hand in hand with us here in the West, because they are trying to create their own separate sphere of influence from everyone else. A little sphere of influence to control this key part of the world and really be the broker and the middleman. If anyone wants to deal with the Middle East, they have to deal with Turkey, which is a very advantageous position for them to be in economically, and then that will allow them to become a military power as well. And they certainly got the GDP for it. I mean, they already have a GDP of nearly $1 billion. That's not that far off from the Russian Federation nowadays. But going off of all
That's
that,
true.
Go ahead.
I was about to say as well, if it came down to it, like for example, like I was saying, if it came down to Turkey having to choose between Ukraine's side or Russia's side, in my opinion, I think it comes down to this simplistic sort of answer here. What is Turkey really scared of? I don't think they have anything to be scared of coming out of Ukraine, because Ukraine's not going to do anything to Turkey if they get on their bad side, militarily speaking. But on the other hand, if Turkey pisses off Russia, that could cause Russia, which Putin's very vindictive, that could cause him to end up doing something to Turkey. I think that's something they always keep in the back of their head, is even though it's more advantageous to probably have a relationship economically with Ukraine, they always have to worry about the madman Putin deciding to do something that might hurt Turkey if they go too far against the Russian interests. So ultimately, I think that would probably be what sways it in the background, is that threat.
Maybe so, possibly. But I want to remind everyone really quickly, not to get into this too much, but I want to remind everyone of things Turkey has done in support of Ukraine, because I'm seeing a lot of people are openly hostile about the Turks and say, don't trust the Turks. And I would have to say, there is a little bit of a reason, not for America, not for the West to trust Turkey at the moment. To be quite honest, on an American level, we shouldn't really trust Turkey. Turkey is an untrustworthy country. But speaking of it from a Ukrainian perspective, there are reasons that Ukraine would believe Turkey and their honesty. One, Turkey has provided a massive amount of military aid to Ukraine over the course of the war. Not only naval vessels that they fully subsidized and produced solely for Ukrainian service in the Ukrainian Navy, but they've also provided an unlimited amount of drones, and have not only done that, but have also started to construct factories inside of Ukraine that will produce Turkish weaponry for them. Also, at the beginning of the war, when the surrender of the Azov occurred inside the Azovstal in the city of Mariupol, we actually saw that Turkey brokered a deal with the Russian Federation that the commanders of the Azov would not go to the POW camps. They would actually live out their lives in exile in Turkey. And then Turkey broke that agreement with the Russians and ended up releasing the Azov commanders right back to Ukraine just about 5 months later, which was outside of their agreement with the Russians. Also, on top of that, we have seen that they have continued to completely close off the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles for 861 straight days to the Russian Navy. The Russian Navy would be able to completely escape destruction in this war if the Turks said, okay, have at it, y'all can go, and just allowed them straight through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles to safety, to some other port in the Russian Federation. And yet they have never done that, and that has been really the main reason why the Russian Navy has been getting destroyed so heavily by Ukraine, is because they simply can't leave. because of Turkey. There are a lot of reasons, at least from a Ukrainian perspective, that Turkey is a trustworthy nation that not only has shown that they would be able to negotiate with the Russians and the Russians would be able to trust Turkey a little bit in those negotiations, but Ukraine would be able to trust their intentions as well. It's not necessary when we're talking about negotiations and trying to come up with a compromise, we're not necessarily talking about a country that would ensure that all of the Western world's interests would be achieved to the detriment of Russia. Turkey is looking at saying, what if we can create a compromise in between the two sides, where the Russians give up some stuff that they want, Ukraine gives up some stuff that they want, and everyone ends up unhappy, but at least the war is over. That's what the Turks are talking about, and from that position, they would be able to negotiate well. But if we're talking about negotiating in support of Western interests, they would not be able to do that. We still need to make sure that Ukraine reclaims the Crimean Peninsula as a priority, and we also have to make sure that Ukraine is able to reclaim the Donbass if possible. Those two things the West wants. And we also want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. And those things I do not think Turkey can achieve. But if we're just talking about Ukraine wanting an end to the war and Russia wanting an end to the war, Turkey would be the one to be able to do that. It's just that it wouldn't really appease both sides and no one would really be happy by the end of it. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. That was probably like one of the longest rabbit holes we've ever gone on about Turkey. But with that, it is time for us to move on out of the area of the Middle East and on back up into Ukraine, because we were able to see that the Russians, while the Ukrainians were, of course, slamming Russian rear line sites today, the Russians decided to try and strike Ukrainian rear line sites as well at the exact same time. We are not going to be showing a lot of the footage of the impacts that occurred in Ukrainian cities tonight. It was very unfortunate, but nevertheless, we were able to see that a Russian missile was intercepted literally over the rooftops of some of the buildings in Dnipro. Oh, it already happened. Here's the clip. Here's the footage.
Damn.
That's wild. Matthew, how big is the lag right now?
I just started talking immediately after you just talked.
Oh, it's pretty long. It's like 10 seconds, maybe. Well, not really 10. It's more like 5. But, you know, we'll have to deal with it. Man, you've been so quiet because, like, you don't know when I'm stopping talking, and I don't really know when you're starting talking either. I'm like, damn, it's a tough night. But anyways, moving on from that and up into our location unknowns, we were able to get some interesting clips up here, starting off with some snipers of the 95th in training, which was pretty cool to see, if it loads. And it has loaded, and they got some pretty nice rifles. They appear to be AR-10s, if I was able to look at this and just take a quick assumption. They look like AR-10s with monolithic uppers, which is pretty unique. And
yeah, man. I think those are AR-10s. Those are some nice ones, too.
Yeah, man, and they got some sick ghillie suits, too. I mean, everything about this is pretty damn nice. I like it. I like to see it. And so with that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next bit, where we got to see an IRIS-T on display. This one is not being used currently. This one was just on display for the Ukrainian public, but we got to see that it has shot down an excessively high amount of Shaheds and also a successfully high amount of cruise missiles. Really cool to see, and great to know that the IRIS-Ts that were provided by Germany are doing great work inside of Ukraine. Meanwhile, we were also able to see that a NEBO radar got hit today by a HIMARS in the area of a location unknown. I forgot we were in the location unknowns, and I was about to say where it was, and we really don't know where it was, but here's the NEBO radar right there, and it's about to get slammed if the video loads, and it is loading. And it's loading.
Man, our connection just got slammed.
Man, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. I honestly think I know what it is, Matthew. I think it's that new little like SSD that was attached to the computer. I don't know what it's doing, but I feel like these problems started after I connected the computer, so I'm gonna have to do some troubleshooting after the stream. But I really need the space.
Man, your computer needs up. It needs to be like turned off and ordered, and it needs just like a basic like Windows, call it defragmentation of the disk or something like that on Windows. I don't know. I'm a Mac user, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into all that after stream for sure, because it's apparently not doing exceptionally well at the moment, but hopefully it'll improve. But still, moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that Ukraine is going to be getting some bigger mines to drop. They're actually getting the M15 anti-tank mine, which is a American-made anti-tank mine, which is a little bit larger in explosive yield than the TM62s, which we've seen commonly used inside of Ukraine so far. We can actually see some of the illustrations of how this mine can be used. But still, really cool to see that they're going to be getting this massive-ass mine, because just to give you all a comparison, the M15 contains 10.5 kilograms of explosives, while the TM62 only carries 7.5. So it gets a whole extra 3 kilograms of explosives inside of this anti-tank mine. But moving on from that little bit of news, it is now time for us to move on into the Russian casualty report, which has been incredibly high. Oh, and it's high. It's good.
Oh, 12 Bobcats. Oh my God, it's crazy. It took like 3 business days to find this out, but when I finally found it, it was worth the wait. 12 Bobcats, that's tremendous to see. And also, those losses are looking juicy out there. I'm telling you what, pure juice. Let's hear them.
Man, I'm telling you what, it's incredibly good, with 1,180 Russian soldiers wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 17 armored personnel carriers, 63 supply trucks, 16 main battle tanks, 57 artillery pieces, 27 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 cruise missile, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 12 Bobcat skid steers. And I gotta say that it is absolutely wonderful to see these kinds of losses being inflicted on the Russian Federation's armed forces, as it does show that the Ukrainians are doing wildly successful so far in the war. But before we move on into those front lines where the Ukrainian forces were doing incredibly successful today, and also what kind of news we were able to get out of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, as well as Kherson, we have some very interesting questions to cover. And also, we have another question about something that we have heard that was really shocking to Matthew and me today. And we were wanting to share with y'all and see what y'all were thinking. Many people may know of someone we call Tucky G here on this channel. Tucky G is the nickname that we gave to Tucker Carlson, which many people have either loved or hated for his news coverage and interviews that he has given to different people around the world. And sometimes those people have been incredibly bizarre, like Alexander Dugin. Nevertheless, we have just gotten the statement today that Tucker Carlson claims to be scheduled for an interview with the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. And a lot of people have been weighing in on their thoughts on that. And a lot of people seem to be really unhappy with it. Some people are really happy with it, actually, and believe that this may give Zelensky a voice even to Tucker Carlson's audience, or to Tucker Carlson himself. A lot of people have been throwing in many different comments about this, but I would like to say that we did, just, not like giving a huge plug or anything, but we did end up beating Fox News, Tucker Carlson's former employer, on the charts last night by a couple of spots. Which I was really happy to see.
Hey, look at that.
Look at that. But nevertheless, we have a lot of people weighing in on this. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? What do y'all think? And Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so now that we've heard that Tucker Carlson, excuse me, claims to be scheduled for an interview. Man, I saw someone say it in the live chat, I almost said it out loud. Tucker Carlson claims to be scheduled for an interview with Ukrainian President Zelensky. What are your thoughts? 33% said Zelensky should have declined it, while 31% said that was a good move by Zelensky, and 28% said, let's see if it actually happens. And the way it sounded like it's almost being finalized by Tucker's team here to actually do this interview. So it sounds like Zelensky might have already accepted it. And if he has, I would say it's probably a good move, because even though Tucker's not exactly the most Ukrainian-friendly source, any way that Zelensky can get the message out is probably a good way. And there's really nothing Tucker can say that's really going to damage Zelensky or Ukraine's reputation, because in the end of the day, most of the stuff that's being said, it really can't be backed up with the facts, and Zelensky can pretty easily defeat those arguments. So I think that was a good. I have really no fear here that there's going to be any PR disaster from that, but that's just me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, in my honest opinion, I don't really see a lot bad with it. I really don't. And I see a lot of people saying, oh, it's a mistake. It's a bad idea. But really, I don't think it is. Because Zelensky, I would have to say, huge credit to Zelensky for wanting to agree to speak with Tucker Carlson, because it shows that Zelensky isn't opposed to speaking to someone who may be considered the opposition, which I would have to say is something you very rarely see in the modern day. Now, is Tucker Carlson going to construct the interview to where it attempts to paint Zelensky and Ukraine in a poor light? Maybe. But is Zelensky going to be able to outwit that and give correct, in possibly good answers, maybe even to change people's opinions that may have not been able to hear Zelensky speak directly to them and their questions before? Yeah, I think he will. I'm never opposed at all to someone like Zelensky speaking to anyone and everyone he can, even if it seems as though the cards will be stacked against him by the time he sits down in the chair for the interview. I would say that I don't really find anything that bad with this. I would like to see what in the world happens, because we all know how the Tucky G Putin interview went. It was insanely stupid. I mean, Putin made fun of Tucker G, or Tucky G, straight to his face. Not only that, he allowed him to ramble for like 30 minutes straight at a time. And that says a lot about how scared Tucky G was of Putin. And also how badly that interview went, because it was a complete waste of time and I had to watch it, and it was a complete 2 hours I wish I had back. Really 2.5 hours. But we will see how it goes with Zelensky. And if Tucker ends up grilling Zelensky, well, you know, we all know that not really a lot is going to be coming out of that interview, and not much will change. Everyone's opinions will remain the same. But if good things come out of it, like, for example, maybe if Tucker Carlson allows Zelensky to possibly ramble like Putin did, or Zelensky puts out some really good zinger answers to some of the questions that Tucker Carlson puts out, this could actually start to change a lot of opinions here in America, people who may be anti-Ukrainian, and they may be able to actually hear the man himself, the person that they've been told is the absolute evil of the world currently, speak to them and reason with them and make sense to some of those people who may disagree with supporting Ukraine or supporting their interests. I would have to say, I don't really think a lot bad can happen out of this. I really think, if anything, either nothing will come of this or a lot of good will come out of it. But I'm certainly not against the idea of Zelensky speaking to people who may even be in the opposition, because it does show that even if these people are opposed to Ukraine, he is willing to cross the threshold of differences and speak to these people and level with them, so that way they can try and see his side, or Ukraine's side for the most part. And you got to respect Zelensky for wanting to take that effort. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredible.
Also, another thing as well is we have to keep in mind that the people that are on the fence about Ukraine, they're watching this stuff very closely. And also, Tucker's audience, I believe, in my opinion, from what I've seen with my own eyes, appears to be not for Ukraine or not pro-Ukraine, at least most of them. So the ones that are watching this are watching very closely. And if Zelensky kept declining the interview request from Tucker Carlson, who was offering to do an interview, but yet Tucker went and did an interview with Putin, it makes people that really aren't in the know, it makes them think, well, look, Putin was being transparent. He did an interview, but Zelensky's not doing one because he has something to hide. That's the way people that don't know really what's going on are going to look at that. So I think it's a smart move by Zelensky. Also, another thing we have to keep in mind as well is that if Tucker Carlson goes in really hard on Zelensky and starts bullying him basically in the interview, that is not going to look good for Tucker Carlson, and it's going to make people feel sorry for Zelensky and also Ukraine as well, or at least that's my opinion, because nobody likes to see people get bullied, especially while their country's at war and their citizens are dying, by some stuck-up journalist. That's not going to go over well at all. That's why I don't think you're really going to see Tucker Carlson going after Zelensky that bad, because I don't think he's going to risk that damage to his reputation. But that's just me. What do you think, Enforcer? What's your take on that?
I would have to agree with that. I just don't see a lot bad coming out of it. I mean, what could come bad out of this? I mean, if Tucker tries to grill Zelensky, it's not going to look good, like Matthew said. It's going to look bad, because he was literally like a little puppy in front of Putin, wouldn't even open his mouth to try and interrupt Putin and just get to the actual questions and their answers. And if he does something opposite to Zelensky, people are going to notice. It's not going to look good. It's not going to turn out well. And I think, and also on top of that, some people are saying, no, Tucker could make Zelensky look like an idiot. If it's that easy to make Zelensky look like an idiot, I'd be very shocked, because there really isn't a easy way to make Zelensky or the Ukrainian cause look like an idiotic one. It's actually quite clear to me why it would be in everyone's interest here in the Western world, every American citizen's interests, to support Ukraine and support them in this war effort. And so it'd be very hard to actually make a different claim. And also on top of that, it allows for an audience, you know, with Tucky G's people, which are in the countless millions from what we understand. It allows for an audience to be had with those people. They have heard Putin's side. What about Zelensky's side? What if Zelensky had things to say that completely threw Putin's goofy interview out of the water? Like, for example, Putin saying, actually, Russia started in Nizhny Novgorod by Yaroslav the Wise. And then Zelensky goes, no, that didn't happen. Ukraine and Russia both started because of the founding of the Kievan Rus down inside of Ukraine. So I would have to say, I don't think it's going to end up being that bad of a thing. If it did,
One thing I see people saying real quick, Enforcer. I see people saying the editor of Tucker Carlson's company is going to make Tucker look good. One thing Zelensky should do, this is something that he'd be very smart to do, is bring out his own cameras and film the interview raw himself. So that way, if Tucker tries to edit the thing to make it look like he did good and like try to keep out all the bad parts, just like Putin did, there is proof to show that he really got punked. And that his editors really can't save his butt from getting punked live on the air. So hopefully Zelensky has his own camera people there. And considering that Zelensky has I believe he has a production company, I think he probably will.
I would have to say, Matthew, I think that they will not edit the interview because it would clearly show. Because no other interview that Tucky G has done has ever been edited or clipped. Like, it has always been just the raw, uncut footage, from what I've understood. Especially with the Putin interview. There was no cut, no editing in that. It was literally just raw footage, and then it was just camera cuts in between. I would still say that's a great idea for Zelensky, though, just in case they tried to pull the rug out from him and edit it a certain way, and they started to edit them. But I think that they wouldn't... I don't think that Tucker Carlson's company would do that, because it's going to look really bad, and it's going to look really obvious that this interview was doctored and tailored, while the other ones really never were. But that is a good point, though, Matthew, and I think that would be a really smart move to make. But with that, I hope we've addressed that incredibly well. And we actually have a couple of questions to answer on top of that. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first Super Chat segment of the night, we have that massive $500 donation, the maximum Super Chat you can throw in, from Griffin Provenzano, who's a longtime channel legend, and huge shout out to Griffin for that very generous support. And he says, 4th of July fund and LSA all the way, and if you know, you know.
Hey, and if you know, you know. And I got to thank you so much for the massive, unbelievable support, Griffin Provenzano. That is the biggest super chat, not only in the stream tonight, but the biggest one that can be thrown in at all, period, on any stream ever. $500 is the cap for a super chat, and I cannot believe that you threw in a $500 super chat in support of this channel. I thank you so much for appreciating this channel that greatly, Griffin Provenzano, and wanting to support it and help it to keep on running. And I also got to thank you so much for supporting our 4th of July fund. Tomorrow, and I want to make sure to say this again, will be a channel holiday. So we will not be running a live stream tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That is a national holiday here in the United States, and it's also going to be a channel holiday, so that way we can have a little bit of a break from running nightly streams, and I can also give my voice a little bit of a break, and we can spend time with our family celebrating the holiday. But I got to say, nevertheless, I thank you so much for supporting that and helping this channel to keep on running, Griffin Provenzano, and of course, the LSA all the way. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and long live the LSA. And thank you so much once again for that insanely massive, unbelievable support, because it's folks like you who not only help this channel to be possible, help this channel to thrive. Of course, the channel requires support to keep on running. It's an ad-free, sponsor-free channel, and no one has to give this channel a single cent. And that's what makes it an absolute surprise, that every single night, we always have people who have enjoyed this channel enough that they find it worthwhile to support. And those people end up supporting the channel and helping it to be possible for everyone who watches. The about 40,000 people who've watched this stream so far. And I've got to say a massive thank you to Griffin Provenzano. And I hope that everyone gives a huge thanks to Griffin Provenzano for supporting this channel, because that is beyond support just to help out this channel. That is just amazing support all the way around. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat of the night is going to go to K-Dub Janky, who's also a longtime channel legend, who threw in a $50 donation as well, and a huge shout out to K-Dub for that support. They said Vikings really influenced the West and East, and the Danish Vikings went to Britain, while the Swedish Vikings went to Asia, and the Viking culture mixed with the British Saxons to produce democratic society, and Vikings in Asia remained barbarians. Why?
And I thank you so much for the support, K-Dub Janky, and I would have to say that that is a very interesting question. Now, I would actually have to say, I don't really think the Vikings were the ones who brought forward modern democracies. It was really more so Enlightenment thinkers, of course. I guess you could say the result of societies that had been created by the Vikings that sort of brought about modern democracy, at least for America and France. It was really more so the Enlightenment than the Vikings themselves. But one thing I would say about the Vikings is that the Vikings really created feudalism. I would say that that's certainly something that they were a massive part of creating. But really, well, actually, the best thing to say, the Vikings didn't really have a lot to do with creating the cultures and societies that we saw throughout the Middle Ages and also later on. I would actually have to say that they were more so just a massive contributing factor to the cultural flavors that you see around the world, if you want to put it that way, because they didn't really change Britain, per se. They didn't really change a lot of the ideas or the culture there, but they melded into it, and they added just a small amount to it. Same thing with Ukraine. They kind of just moved into Ukraine, because the Vikings were settled people, at least within Norway, but they were in also Denmark, but they were also a seafaring, nomadic-like people. And so usually, a lot like the Mongols, they would move into an area, think, hey, this is pretty posh kind of a lifestyle these people are living, and then they just settle amongst them, start picking up some of their customs, and also dispersing some of theirs as well, which is incredibly interesting to me. A really, really interesting concept, a lot like the Phoenicians of ancient time, but nevertheless, moving on from that, I would say that Vikings in Asia, that's an interesting question, because from what I understand, there wasn't really many of them. I believe the Varangian Guard was a guard created by the Byzantines, which is where modern-day Turkey is now, that was made up of Vikings, or made up really of foreigners, most of them being Vikings. And those were some Vikings that I know of that were at least in Asia Minor, but I don't really know of many other Vikings that traveled much farther than that. There supposedly were Viking settlements that were created in the area of modern-day Nova Scotia by Leif Erikson, although there's not really a lot of accounting of that, and it wasn't really that big of a thing because it was never really built upon. It really was just something that happened and then disappeared, and that was that. But at the same time, I would say that Vikings did have an influence on the European world, no doubt, and even the Byzantine world, or more so the world of the Middle East at the time. But as far as saying that they developed modern democracy, at least from what I understand, it was more so Enlightenment thinkers looking to the past for inspiration that started to look at the Roman Republic and the Greek city-state democracies like Athens that really started to bring forward a modern concept of democracy that really hadn't existed anywhere in Europe up until the foundation of the United States of America, and then the creation of the French Republic, or at least the first French Republic, due to the French Revolution, which then quickly devolved and turned into the first French Empire. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion, K-Dub Jinky. And I'm not exactly an expert. I will say this. I'm not exactly an expert at all on Viking history. So I may be misinterpreting things a little bit because it's outside of my wheelhouse, but still a very interesting rabbit hole to go down. And I got to thank you so much once again for support, K-Dub Jinky, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who enjoyed this channel and supported it and helped it to keep on running, we wouldn't be able to talk about incredibly cool things like Vikings here and there. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the final question in this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
All right, and the last one of this segment goes to Steve Watkins at work. He's still at work, and he puts in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, Steve, for that support. He said, don't let the computer problems get you down. And just a thought, make sure you don't have something like OneDrive or a backup program backing up the files on that new SSD. And LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Steve Watkins at work, and giving a little bit of some troubleshooting ideas. I don't know what it is, but I was starting to run out of space on my computer, and the thing is that we tried to get a new one in the past, but I literally could hardly transfer anything over to the new computer from the old one, like my video editor or OBS with the same kind of settings. I'd have to set all of that up raw in a new computer, which was really overwhelming considering that it had to be done in a day, and that would clearly take longer than a day. So then I ended up just plugging up the old one and sending that one back. As far as upgrading this one, I decided instead of getting a brand new computer, I was just going to get a 2 terabyte SSD and add that in, because that would allow me to continue to make stuff for the channel, also download other stuff in the background, which was really getting sparse, like video games, because I used to have kind of okay amount of video games on my computer, and then I ended up having to delete all of them but 2 because I was literally running out of room because the channel side of things is taking up so much storage. So then I was like, I need to get more room. So then I got myself a 2 terabyte SSD, hooked it in. I didn't end up damaging the motherboard. I do know that because I plugged in the SSD correctly and put the screw right where it was supposed to go and just screwed down the SSD. I didn't screw it down incredibly hard, damaging the motherboard. It
Oh
was
wait,
just
you installed an SSD on the actual computer. Like, it's not a plug and play like external. It's an internal.
yeah, it's an internal. Like you actually plugged it into a slot
Oh,
on the
boy.
motherboard. Go ahead.
I said, oh boy.
Oh boy, is in what?
As in, that's scary. That's scary, man. I'll have to check it out. But honestly, it's sounding like we might have to wipe your computer and back it up. Because, you know, it's been having problems for a while. So I'm not sure if maybe you've downloaded something that might be slowing the computer down or something like that. It could be some type of malware in the background. But I'm not sure if restarting the computer is going to help it. But man, I'm going to have to definitely take a look at that because I didn't know you installed that inside the computer. Otherwise, I'd have come in there taking a look at it. But we'll have to see.
And also, some people, in Millennium Lance got it right. It was an M2 drive. Some people are asking, did I ground myself? Yes, I did. Because every single tutorial said ground yourself. So I found something that would get rid of my static, and I touched it, and then I went to work on the thing. So let's see here. Should never mess with your internet speeds. Only software. SSD is hardware. Let's see. This is a bandwidth issue. Check for programs eating your internet bandwidth. We're going to check into that after stream. Matthew usually acts like everything I do is going to blow up in a nuclear hellfire and explosion, which sometimes is right, other times may not be. He's like, oh boy. But beyond that, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be in the clear. But beyond that, I will say thank you so much for giving some tips and pointers, Steve Watkins, at work. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who were still at work, we wouldn't be able to get at least some ideas on how to fix things, at least with the computer right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to be on here right now. And so with that, we're now moving on into the rest of the Ukraine war news, which we were able to get out of Shevakino today, where we got to see that they're trying to move wounded back into the special military operation, like in this clip right here. All these guys are slated to return back to the front lines, pretty much. That's the end of the clip. Kind of sad, but once again, that's just Russia for you. But moving on from that into our next clips around the Vovchansk front, we did get to see that elements of the Azov were clearing Russian trenches today around the area. Here's the clip. If it loads. There we go. This one's a little lengthy, and it also has music in it, so I'm going to have to mute it. But here is the clip, and we can see them here looking out of the opening. We can see them under fire. And we will not be able to show all of this. So if you want to see the entire thing, make sure to click on the link in the description below for this day's map, and you'll be able to see the entire thing. But we will not be able to show all 14 minutes of it here on stream. But we can see a montage of them here in the trenches conducting actions against the Russians. And we can see the video is buffering.
Man, I'm telling you what, I have a feeling if I come over there and examine the computer, we're going to find somewhere down deep in the root files. It's going to say hotdogman.exe.
Probably so. Maybe so. Because this is exceedingly slow. Well, I am actually going to have to say, I believe we're going to have to cut... Yeah, I'm going to have to cut this video a little bit short. Nevertheless, the Azov was doing incredible work in the area. And moving on from that, we also got to see in this short clip right here that a tree fell over. If it loads, and it's finally loaded. And here's the clip. Okay, and this one's going to be buffering as well. It is getting extremely tiresome. But there goes the tree. And it literally stopped mid-fall. And there we go. The tree fell, and then the video will probably buffer again. And it didn't, actually. That's a miracle. Nope, it did. I said that a little too early. But with that, that's the end of the clip. It's showing a little bit of some of the trench fighting that's going on right around the area of Vovchansk. Meanwhile, moving further on down the line and into the area of Bakhmut, we were able to see a true miracle happen. It was a miracle from the Lord. It appears that the Ukrainians dropped a bomblet onto these Russian stretcher bearers, carrying a wounded Russian, and the explosion was such a startle that the wounded began to walk. Well, you see the explosion here, and the man on the stretcher, he gets up, rolls over, gets up, and runs away. Quicker than the stretcher bearers, even. Look at him go.
Man, he got up out of there.
A true miracle in every single right of the way. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see around Klishkivka a counterattack occurring by the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade. If the clip loads. Hang on a minute, everyone. I just thought of something. I'm going to check on something really quick, so hang tight, and I'm going to check on this. Oh, it was nothing. I was just checking to see if anything was downloading in the background, and I'm not seeing anything downloading right now. So hopefully that is the case. But here's
You know how to use Task Manager?
Yes, I do. I just don't know if that will show up on OBS though, and I don't want everyone to see the Task Manager pop up if I was to, do something like that. So.
Гранаты не забывайте.
And it looks like our stream has flatlined now, and it has, and so we're going to be waiting for that to pass.
Man, I think we're back.
I think we're back. I think we might be back. No, it doesn't really look like it. Yeah, now it looks like we're starting to come back. Can you hear me, Matthew?
Yes.
All right, so it looks as though things are okay. And I see a lot of people saying pay for an expert. And you know what would happen? I would go to an expert. I would say, I need this computer looked at. And they say it'll be 3 days. And then I'm not running a stream for 3 straight days. So that probably wouldn't be that good. So with that. You see them moving forward down. We now see them open firing on the Russians. Left-handed said, restart the computer. Like I just restarted the computer and the live stream will keep running. No, that's not how it works. It would be a new live stream and that just wouldn't work.
Гранату давай.
Oh, this is rough. This is a fairly rough deal, and it looks like it just keeps lagging. Everyone in the chat saying that it's lagging. Sorry about that, everyone. Please bear with us. See them firing on Russian positions, although we can't really see it well. We can hear it really well, though. And we can see it lagging still.
Can we get some bits and some higher bit rates?
I hope so, but we're going to have to be cutting this video a little bit short, but nevertheless showing a counterattack by the 93rd in the area around Bakhmut, and moving a little bit further on down the line and into the Donetsk region, we were also able to see some Ukrainian... Alright, and this video doesn't really appear to be wanting to load either, but it finally did, but we can see here that they're looking through the building, and it does appear to be quite damaged, a lot like this computer.
Живой зато остался, самое главное, блядь. Ебало нас не по-детски, нахуй. Вот этот ебаный подвал, в нем мы охуели, блядь. Был дом целый, блядь. 155-м калибром разобрали нас укропы, сука.
I'd be damned. This is getting extremely tiresome.
Наша, блядь,
Sorry.
Damn, this is freaking ridiculous. What's going on?
That's great. I love to see it.
Вот этот дом был целый, с боекомплектом, с БК.
Oh, my lord. All right, so we're going to have to end this video a little bit
bleh.
short. God bless you, Russian, for showing your blown up home or whatever. But moving on from that, we also got to see a HIMARS strike on Russian forces down here in the Donetsk area. I have a feeling that this video will probably not play either, considering that this is just kind of an issue across the board. But let's see what we got. You know what? I'm going to do something really quickly. One second, let me pop you all back to the loading screen or the intro screen for a minute while I do something in the background. So hang tight, everyone.
Also, while the enforcer does whatever he's doing here, can they still hear us enforcer? Or are they on guard to mute?
For a brief second, we're going to be all right. And Matthew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any lag?
Yes, a little.
Okay, there is a little bit of lag, but I feel like things are running a little bit quicker. So let me check. All I had to do, Matthew, was just reconnect the internet. That's all I had to do. So we're going to be muting that. But here's the 58th Brigade firing on the Russians. And we can see them here lining up their targets. And I couldn't tell if that was a part of the video or what, but the HIMARS slammed right on the target. We can see the camera zooming back in, and we can see them hitting another target in the area, once again with HIMARS.
Also, Jason Pate said, all right, guys, you've done a great show.
And Matthew...
Live, we don't do that. We stay right here. What happened?
Matthew's lagging again, and it seems as though the stream has
Oh,
flatlined
damn.
again.
We're doing it live.
Oh, man, it's going to be wonderful, y'all, to have to go through a whole question segment as well after this with this going on. This is going to be great. But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Nice to see the HIMARS striking its targets. Meanwhile, we also got to see an ammo depot exploding after a strike inside the Donetsk area. And we can see that explosion right there. Of course, beautiful to see in its absolute brilliance and beauty of the orange and the gray that comes out of those kinds of explosions. And with that, that's the end of that clip, but really neat to see. Moving on from that and into the Novomikhailivka area, we also got to see the Russians hiding around an abandoned vehicle. Here's the clip. We're going to have to mute the Chad music, but it seems as though things are kind of going a little okay right now, knock on wood. But we can see here that the Russians are moving around in the street as the Ukrainians watch them from above.
You know, the funny thing is, that desk you have is not even wood, so you just knocked on, like, something else. I think it's, like, cardboard or something.
I think it's like plywood or something like that. It's not real wood, though. But we can see them going in.
Smith said, Matt, you cut out. Man, I've been cutting out for like the past hour. I tell you what, they've been robbing me of my talk time.
Matthew, how many seconds was the lag in between you stopping and me starting right there?
Like 3 seconds, 4 seconds?
I think it's actually fixing, Matthew, because you're talking like right when I stopped talking right now.
Yeah, is it? Did I do it that time?
Yeah, you did, almost. It was like a 2-second delay, maybe. It's getting a lot shorter.
Man, it could be a Christmas miracle, and it's not even Christmas.
I mean, the Christmas miracle. It's like, very nice. Oh, dang. I think they just dropped a cluster round on those guys. I don't think they're having a fun time down there. But our internet's coming back.
Hey, let's go. We got the bit rate. Let's go, Jack.
The bit. And the last time, there was a bit. I bit a dog. But anyways, we can see the Russian running through the trench.
I think our router just got dementia.
Dude. Oh, dang, dude, that guy just hit an AP mine, an anti-personnel mine. Rip. But we can see this guy right here. He's wandering around. Oh, and the cluster hits. And he's still walking. He just doesn't give a damn. And that is the end of the clip, but really nice to see. And with that, we're now going to be moving on out of that area and on down to Kherson, where we got to see a Russian D-30 was also destroyed down here today. As it loads, but I have faith in our internet, and I think it's going to work just fine now. But we can see here the drone looking into the distance, looking for the D-30.
Man, giving them the D30.
Man, the Ukrainians be putting the D in the D30. Man, I'm telling you what. Dude, there's like no lag now.
Man. Oh, man, that's perfect.
Aw, man, there's no lag anymore. Boo hoo hoo. Or like the computer's about to die though. like watching just literally like shut off in a second. It's like, oh no. I'm sure it's something, y'all. Like Nicholas Condor, you're probably right. It probably was a Windows update. What I'm going to do is after the stream, I'm just going to shut down the whole computer and restart it and see if that fixes the issue for tomorrow. Matthew will probably be encouraging me to try and buy a brand new computer, which I've already tried to do, and I absolutely hated because nothing worked. So we'll probably just keep working with this one if we can.
You do have a brand new, like, gaming laptop that you got right in there.
I am not streaming on that, Matthew. I would die before I stream on that thing.
Oh, no, you don't understand. You can actually, like I do, like I use my entire setup, it's from my laptop, but I don't use a laptop screen. I simply hook it up to external monitors and use it as like a desktop, like closed screen.
That's interesting, Matthew, but I'd have to say the lag is so far away now, what in the world are we even talking about? But moving on up into the area of Kyiv, we did get to see the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 861 of the war. And so, without further ado...
Dear Ukraine...
Oh, no.
Give me a speech, please. We don't want the crazy voice, we want the real voice.
We want
Give
the
it to us
real...
now.
Here is the real speech, please.
Дорогі українці, українки, весь день в Дніпрі тривають рятувальні роботи після російського ракетного удару. Більш ніж 50 людей постраждали, усім надається необхідна допомога. Станом на цей час відомо про 5 загиблих, мої співчуття рідним та близьким. В Дніпрі пошкоджені будинки, лікарня, підприємство. Були також ракетні удари по інших наших регіонах. Керовані авіабомби по Харкову і по наших фронтових позиціях. Все це можемо зупинити тільки одним, тільки більшою кількістю систем ППО, тільки більш далекобійними ударами по місцях базування російських терористів, по їхнім авіабазам. Про все це активно говоримо з партнерами на всіх рівнях, готуємось до саміту НАТО у Вашингтоні, зокрема з точки зору патріотів для України. Провів сьогодні кілька нарад щодо нашої комунікації з партнерами, щодо планів на цей липень. Будуть важливі перемовини. Також є прогрес і щодо нових безпекових угод для України. Вдячний команді за цю роботу. Провів сьогодні наради з урядовцями. Прем'єр-міністр Шмигаль, перша віце-прем'єр Свириденко, віце-прем'єр Федоров, міністр фінансів Марченко. Вже є чіткі деталі нових рішень для українців, нових програм, які допоможуть людям в цей час дефіцитів електрики, а також щодо стабілізації мобільного зв'язку. Зараз потрібен максимум можливостей забезпечити генерацію, створення нової децентралізованої генерації, і під це буде фінансовий ресурс. Найближчим часом урядовці представлять всю конкретику. Ще одне. Говорив сьогодні з головкомом Сирським, була доповідь щодо фронтової ситуації, також говорив з міністром оборони Умєровим щодо його контактів в Америці, щодо нових пакетів для України. Зустрівся сьогодні з головою Генеральної асамблеї ООН та привітав із початком роботи нового прем'єр-міністра Нідерландів. Я дякую всім, хто нам допомагає. Дякую всім, хто б'ється та працює заради України і українців. Слава Україні!
And
Героям слава!
Oh, dude, the lag is gone! The worms! The worms!
Let's go!
Hey!
The worms! They're not on the computer, the worms!
The worms! The worms! Dude, it was literally just that I had to disconnect and reconnect to the internet. That was literally the entire fix that entire time. Can you believe that? It was literally that easy.
Man, that is a garbage network card, apparently.
You know what? I might need to buy like an upgrade to that thing, apparently. That probably would be a good thing to try and buy an upgrade for, because the storage seems to be fine. It's the bandwidth issue that is the real problem. But beyond that, folks, we've made it to the end of the news. And that is something of a miracle tonight, because somehow, even with the lag, it was an hour and 50-minute long news segment with us like cutting footage in half sometimes just because of the lag. But with that, it's about time for us to move on into that question segment where we get to talk to all of y'all. And it's the funnest time of the night, because sometimes the stuff we talk about is wildly interesting, or other times is wildly funny, and other times it's just wildly thought-provoking. And I cannot wait to get to talk to every single one of y'all, because it's just always a fun time. Like, everyone always has a kick with this. But once again, I want to remind everyone, considering that we're now about the halfway point of the stream, most likely, that this stream will not be running tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It will not be. If you were expecting a stream tomorrow, I am so sorry to disappoint you. There won't be a stream. We will be running our nightly war news stream on the 5th of July, not the 4th of July. The 4th of July is an official channel holiday, and so we will be taking that day off from streaming, but we will join y'all all the next day on the 5th of July at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. But I have to say that it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure getting to cover this news for y'all for so many days straight. We always love doing this. But we want to make sure to celebrate the 4th of July with our family, because there is a very finite amount of time where you get to enjoy your family. And you know, at some point in the future, they may be gone. And we want to make sure to celebrate holidays and events like this with them, so that way we can always make sure to have some good memories, rather than all the great memories that we've made constantly working on this channel and getting the news out to all of y'all. And so with that, I hope that does address that once again fairly well. The big takeaway from that is 4th of July, there will not be a stream. The next stream will be on the 5th of July. And so with that, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so it's now time for the final question segment of the night. And y'all might have noticed we actually do not have a poll to address, so we're moving right into our Super Chat segment. But with that, real quick, I wanted to quickly tell everybody, huge thanks for the positive feedback today on the video that we put out. It was about the secret CIA bases inside of Ukraine. That was the video. And I actually pulled kind of a fast one, because I'd said last night on stream, I said it would probably be out in a few days. And then I released it within 24 hours. So I kind of pulled a fast one there, and I saw people mentioning that down in the live, or excuse me, not the live chat, but the comments. But overwhelming positive response to that video. And if y'all want to see more of those, let me know in the live chat, because I do have some more that I could come up with and also make in the future. It'll probably be maybe a week or two down the road if I do another one that soon, but you know, it looks pretty good. Obviously, the video did not get as many views as our typical like short war summaries do, but that's because it's an entirely different form of video, and it's a bit of a slow burner instead of a fast burner. So overwhelmingly though, very good. And also, I think you got like 6,000 or 7,000 likes on it as well, so very tremendous to see, and huge shout out to everybody for that. But anyways, we're jumping right into our super chat.
You're not gonna let me make a comment?
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? You're just going to deprive me of my comment on your video? What the hell? Now, really quickly. Now, Matty may have been trying to quickly usher on without me making a comment on his video, but I gotta say, that video was probably one of the best ones that we've made, short documentary-wise. I would say, I'm sure many of y'all can agree, it's really a step up from the government cheese video. I don't think there's much argument there from anyone that the government cheese video falls below this one. It was an incredibly well-made video, and I got to see it before it went out to all of y'all. On the channel itself. I was absolutely blown away with the amount of research and the amount of effort that Matthew had put into making that video, and we hope that all of y'all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed watching it myself personally. It was incredibly good, and while Matthew is making shorter documentary videos like that one, I'm still working on the background a little bit on the documentary for the Taiwan-China video that we are coming up with. And you know something, Matthew? Now, if I pulled up the Word document right now on this computer, Matthew, would you be able to see it?
Possibly so, depending on how you have your OBS set up.
Okay, I think it's to show the entire screen, I believe. Wait, no. Wait a minute, hang on. You specifically are on Discord. You don't watch the screen, you're watching a tab. So I don't think you'd be able to see it. But I'm going to give a little bit of a sneak peek. You know, this is actually supposed to be going out to Patreon, but a lot of people are probably thinking at this point, it's like, damn, Enforcer, you've been talking about this video for a while. Where in the world is it? It's still in the script development phase, because I've gone through three iterations of scripts now. I am now on the third, and I'm still working on it. So really quickly, I'm going to go pull up my Word, my Microsoft Word, And I'm going to take y'all to documentary project number 3, which is the one. Where the hell is it? There it is. There is document project 3. We click on that, and here we go. This is it. Documentary project 3, Taiwan invasion. Sadly, Matthew can't see this. If he's watching the stream on another screen, he'll probably see it in a delay, but this is the script that I have written at the moment for the video. It's a little lengthy, and we are assuming that I'll be talking about 125 words a minute, 150 words a minute. Yeah, kind of, sort of, because we're wanting to make it to where it's clearly pronounced, and it's not me on stream where I'm going a million miles an hour and saying almost like 400 words a minute. So that means that the video, at this point right now, with just this amount of words, is 10 minutes long, and it's not even close to being done. This is literally just to explain why in the world China and Taiwan are at odds with each other, and why a war may be inevitable. But this is the script that I currently have at the moment, and it has taken a lot of research to be able to get this right, because there's a lot of information, an insanely detailed amount of information that goes into why Chinese-Taiwan relations are the way they are. And a lot of people would probably think that's really simple, but once you actually look under the surface, it becomes a lot more complicated. So explaining it takes a lot of time, and then I know that, you know, we only have a finite amount of time to tell you all about this stuff. I can't go into an entire college-level thesis on, or like a doctorate level thesis on Chinese-Taiwan relations. Y'all are here to hear about how a war would begin, so I've got to try and cut all this down to be as short as possible. And this is as short as it has gotten. And what is insane, what is absolutely insane about this is that if I go to file, there are 2 other documentary projects that have been made on this thing that are identical. You can see that the first one started on the 18th of June, and it's been going on since then. It's been an insanely large amount of time and effort and research that has been going into this, and I hope that when it comes out, y'all really enjoy it, because it's completely different than how Matthew's documentaries are being made. Matthew's are a lot shorter than mine will ever be. His are about 6 minutes to, I believe, 10 minutes long is his current goal right now. Mine are going to be anywhere in between the ballpark of 20 to 30 minutes long, and they're going to be covering things in a lot more rabbit hole-ish level depth, because I know that a lot of y'all say that y'all love the rabbit holes. So the concept with that is, what if I made a rabbit hole an entire video, and I did not stop the rabbit hole due to time constraints? I literally just covered everything. And that is kind of the goal right now with the whole Chinese-Taiwan thing. And it's also the goal with how we're going to be covering news in the future. We would love to do documentaries like that as a normal staple on this channel. And it's something that we've always wanted to do, we've never really been able to do, and now we're putting in a lot of work and effort in the background to try and make this thing a reality. The problem is, and like a lot of y'all probably looked at that script, and it's only 1,250 words long right now. A lot of people are probably like, damn, that doesn't seem that long. Yeah, it's not that long. Problem is, it's making it that short. Like, the other script that I had, I think it's Documentary Project 2, had gotten up to 2,500 words long, and it hadn't even gotten to the Chinese military yet. It was still on Chinese-Taiwan relations. That's why that one got thrown out, is because it was just simply too long, and it was going to be too meticulous, because it was already 25 minutes long at an estimated speed of 125 to 150 words per minute, just to talk about why in the world they're at odds with each other. So hopefully we'll...
Man, I got a script for you. I got a script. Like, I'll come up with one right here on the spot. Taiwan's got their independence. China says, hey, we want some land. We want some chips. Taiwan says, no, we'll keep that. China goes in, tries to take it, loses big league. West comes in and says, oh, did we smell oil? And then they get smacked down, bang, bang, boom, boom, bada, bing, bing, and then it's all over. The China country gets smacked down. Taiwan keeps their country. The end.
It would be nice to make a script like that, but that would be too short, man. Like, and also that doesn't cover a lot of what I'm wanting to cover, because I have to remind you all, I have literally read volumes of books on this topic to make this one video. And there is such a large amount of information that just goes into a singular part of this alone. In some instances, like the 1,250 word script I'm making is trying to condense about 300 pages of reading into about 10 minutes of talking, which is really a big challenge to try and cover everything that is important without making it too long and without making it too complex and too difficult and too hard to follow. And that is the issue, is that I'm trying to have to figure out how to do that right now. And That is why it's taking so long. But we are hoping, and after the stream is done tonight, I'm pretty much going to get to click-clacking on the keyboard again and start pumping out the rest of the script, because the military part of things is where it gets really interesting, because we're going to be talking about the Chinese military, how it's formed, how it functions, how it would fight Taiwan, how Taiwan would defend itself. We're going to be talking about all of that in the next part of the script that has to be written. And then we're going to be talking about possible U.S. intervention as well, and why the United States supports Taiwan but doesn't recognize Taiwan, which is a whole other thing as well. But still, I cannot wait to get that out to y'all. I've just rabbit holed on literally just making the video, and then I got a rabbit hole for the video. But I have a feeling that y'all will really enjoy it and really like it. Also, I saw that a lot of people really like the way Matthew started his script, which because they're scripted, by the way. They're not like an ad hoc kind of a format. Say what?
I said the storytelling format.
Yeah, a lot of people really like that, and I really like that as well. Starting off with kind of like a visual depiction of some part of something going on in the big picture. And so I actually went and also rewrote the script a third time to include that kind of an iteration in it, because I thought it was really, really good sounding to start off with a storytelling kind of a thing. It's just that I didn't do that the first time because I was like, do people really want that? And after watching y'all's response to Matthew's video today, I was like, oh, y'all want that. Y'all really do. Y'all would like that. And so I'm going to try and include that in mind as well, so that way it's a little bit more interesting. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. I thank you so much once again for the support, and absolutely enjoying everyone enjoying that video that came out today, because it was absolutely incredible to see so many people give Matthew an overwhelming showering of support, because we have multiple projects like that lined up for the future. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And real quick, I ran a poll here. It said, do you prefer long-form documentaries, meaning about 30 minutes, or short-form documentaries, meaning about 10 minutes? 68%, the overwhelming majority, said long-form, and 32% said short-form. And on this one, I will say that it looks like everyone prefers long-form, but for me, I'm going to keep mine around 10 minutes or so. I'm going to go against the grain just a little bit, because for me, I want to cover a wider variety of topics, and it's really hard to do that with the longer videos. Because, for example, that 7-minute long video I made and put out today, that thing actually took about 6 or 7 hours to make. And it was a lot of work, like really compressed into a short amount of time. Just because it's really hard to find the footage to put in the video, come up with a storyline for it, script the video, actually record it where it makes sense and sounds good, edit the video, come up with a thumbnail for it, then the title and description. All that takes a lot of time. So for me, the 30-minute long videos, that's almost like a 2-week long project. So I think the Enforcer is going to take that side of it. I'm going to keep the short form. So we'll get both. We'll get both.
You know what, Matthew? I think this would be a really, like, just talking some background, some behind-the-scenes stuff in front of everyone. I think a really good way to work the schedule would be you put out weekly, maybe, on like a slow news day, one of those short-length documentaries 3 times a month, and then I come out once a month with a really long 30-minute long documentary. So that way it's kind of a little balanced. So that way we can end up, because if yours are 10 minutes long and mine are 30 minutes long, that means they get 30 minutes of your documentaries and 30 minutes of mine, which I think a lot of people might like.
Yeah. That's a good idea. And also, if y'all hadn't noticed, we actually were not going to make a short war video, like a summary video today, because there wasn't enough news to cover midday to make one. So we put it out today on that low news day. That's the strategy going forward right here. Whenever there's a low news day, we'll have these videos queued up to actually play on those days, or at least that's our temporary plan. So that way we won't have a gap day in the video as long as we have one ready to go, and that should like fill that gap.
And hopefully y'all will all love these things. We've talked about these things so much, man. We're talking these things into the ground, but we hope that y'all are really excited about what we have coming up forward in the future. Y'all got a taste of it today, and hopefully that'll become a mainstay of the channel going on into the future. Another thing that I've been looking into, because this is something that I've wanted to do, and Matthew, try and throw up a poll on this if you can. Would y'all be interested in seeing animations? And when I say animation, let me explain this before we throw up that poll. Would y'all be interested in seeing animations in our videos? And what I mean by that is, instead of a lot of stock footage, which is how we've been doing our documentary so far, the government cheese one and this one, would y'all like to see possible animations in the videos to explain things a lot better? Like, for example, say like an animation showing Chinese forces landing on Taiwan with a little like NATO signals for battalions landing on the island and then engaging in combat with Taiwanese forces. Would y'all be interested in seeing animations like that to explain some of the more difficult or hard to explain parts of videos, so that way visually it becomes a lot easier to understand? Or would y'all rather see the kind of stock footage sort of documentaries that we've been making so far primarily? Because if so, if y'all are really interested in that, because right now we're having a little bit of a debate in the background about how these documentaries will be made. Right now, it's an argument of, should we do a lot of quality, or should we do, as far as animation goes. Now, quality as far as the script goes is always guaranteed, but should we do a lot of quality with the visual side of things, or should it be a little bit easier so that way we can cut down production time and cut down effort and stress? That's been a little bit of an argument, well, not really an argument, a debate we've been having in the background is how these videos should be made going forward. And I see that a lot of people are saying yes to animations in the live chat, but I'm wondering how that would be reflected in a poll. Maybe so. But I would love to see that kind of an answer, because that would help me out a lot, because right now it has the video itself hasn't even been really formed yet. It's still kind of in the script writing phase. And if y'all would like to see that, we would be more than happy doing that. And Matthew put complex visual animations. It's like, dude, it could be complex. It's going to be
man. That translates to expensive. Whenever you see the word complex on something, that means it's about to cost some bank.
Not if I learn it. That's kind of the thing that I did not explain there, is that animators, which we've reached out to in the past, are exceedingly expensive, especially for the amount of income we make running this channel. Just talking about a business side of things. And it would be physically infeasible for us to afford even making a single video, because it would take up about an entire month's budget on this channel just to make one video that was really well animated. And even then, sometimes the animations don't really look that good for the kind of quality I'm looking for. So if y'all really want to see something like that, I would actually have to take the time to figure out how to work Adobe After Effects and all the different plugins that we would have to get to be able to make animations like that. But I personally, in my opinion, I love videos that are well animated. I always look up to channels like the Caspian Report, Real Life Lore, those kinds of channels that have complex animations in them, because it just makes things in some parts of the video so much easier to understand when you can physically see them, instead of having to talk about them and just try and explain it through talking alone. So I hope that does address that fairly well. It looks like a lot of y'all do want complex video animations, and then a decent amount of y'all also want stock footage and B-roll. And then some of y'all want actually a view of the enforcer talking and B-roll. And what I'm kind of thinking that would be cool is kind of a blend of the three, where I'm actually in front of a camera talking a little bit, then in another part I'm actually behind the scenes like I am right now, and y'all are looking at some visual animations, and then other times looking at B-roll. That was an idea that I had, kind of like a Johnny Harris style of documentary. Because I mean, and I'm giving out like names of YouTube channels, but these people are pretty much the hallmarks of certain kinds of documentary coverage on YouTube. You either have the Johnny Harris style, the Real Life Lore style, the Caspian Report style, or you have the War Report Room style that is completely different and entirely animated. And I would have to say, I think Johnny Harris style or Real Life Lore style is kind of the direction I'd like to go with my documentaries. But of course, it will be different enough that it's a specific enforcer style. But with that, I hope that does address that well. We beat that into the ground at this point. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, W13RD guy said, my 2 cents, no AI thumbnails. That's one thing as well that y'all will not see in our stuff. We're not doing any AI thumbnails, and the scripts themselves are not written by AI. I'll admit that I did get an outline from ChatGPT. I will say that up front, but nothing in the video that was actually spoken came from AI itself. It was simply the outline and the structure of the video to get me kickstarted, because we don't want AI content. That takes away the originality of it, the uniqueness of it. And the video today that I made had a bit of creativity in it, like the whole storytelling format and stuff like that. And the AI would not capture that very good. And also, we don't want that type of like factory content coming out. We want real content. So we'll never do that. But anyways, jumping into our first super chat here. This one goes to Howard Turgell, and he puts in a $30 donation and says, hot dogs or hamburger? Hamburger all the way.
Hamburger all the way. Hamburgers are better burgers, period. I mean, you just can't beat the hamburger. Who can beat the hamburger? Nobody, Howard Turgell. Nobody. And so with that, I got to thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. It was a very short answer. It was a very short, cut and dry answer. But I still thank you so much for supporting the Hamburger Fund, because that's what we would really like. And thank you so much once again, Howard Turgell, for being a longtime viewer and always supporting this channel and always helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one here goes to Radical of an Integer Information Media Activity, who puts in a $26 donation and says, wink.
And wink. And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for throwing in that incredibly nice wink, Radical of an Integer. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to wink. We would starve to death. And so I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 22 from Rick Hollander. And Rick says, good morning, guys, and thanks for keeping me and the world informed, and respect to y'all. And Zeist is where I live. And Klazenivin is where I'm from. Street de Chopin 91. And tell me what you think.
You know what? I'm going to go look at Zeist first in the Netherlands. Zeist. Man, that's what the Dutch people call a bank heist. They call it a Zeist. But I'm just kidding. I'm just playing about that. But let's drop down and let's see what Zeist looks like. This reminds me a lot of the UK for some reason, like with how the street was made.
It does, but it looks... Well, let's see some more of the street.
All right, we'll go down the street. This is very British. I mean, I'm not kidding, man. It's like Northern England a little bit.
Let's see here. He was saying, tell me what you think. And he said, Zeist is where I live. I'll be honest with you, Rick. Like, I'm just being perfectly honest here. I cannot tell. This is the weirdest place I've ever seen, because I can't tell if it looks nice or if it looks bad. I'll be honest. It looks like it's nice, but at the same time, when you look closely, it's like, I'm not really sure if I like it or not. But I don't know. Like, what do you think about it, Rick? What do you think? Because he asked us what we think. What do you really think?
Let's see. Klazenavin. Oh, so we want to go here, and then we want to go to a specific street in this town. So this is where he's actually from, which is right on the German border, actually. This is literally just about a half mile away, maybe. So we want to go to a specific street in this town, and it is Chopin 91, if I'm saying that right. Which I know I'm saying it wrong, so, you know, you don't have to correct me on that. Like, I know it's wrong. But, let's see here. Dang, where is it? It would be so much easier to type it in, but I'm not that kind of a person. I have to find it visually. So, where is the street? Where is the street? Where is it? I can't find it. And you know what? I'm going to have to type that in. Shopping. Klazenavin. Okay, so this is the street. Okay, this is the street. Now let's drop down here, because he asked us what we thought about this specific spot. Okay, this actually looks nicer, I would say. Maybe because it's brighter out when they drove the camera through, but this doesn't look that bad. Really what it reminds me of, and I know why it does, it reminds me of a Lego city. Like, because it you know, Lego is inspired, it's from Denmark, so it's inspired by the local architecture, so it looks a lot like Lego City to me. But I don't think that's a gripe. I think that actually looks pretty good, pretty clean to me, Rick. And Matthew, what is your take on it? Do you like it or no?
This looks like your typical American apartments to me. Also, I will say I'll give them points for they got solar on the roof up there. That's pretty smart. You don't see that in too many places around here in America, or at least in Alabama you don't really see that. I'm sure probably California you probably see that more, but definitely not here. But I will say that I do like it. It's not my favorite place, I'll be honest, but it's nice though. It's nice.
I would say it's not too bad, actually. I think this is pretty nice looking to me. And I really like the change in architecture. It's pretty British looking. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it looks a lot like Northern England, like with the architecture and everything, because y'all have to build the houses mostly out of brick, and also there's not really a lot of room for ventilation to be built into the houses, because they're actually built for insulation, considering usually this area is fairly colder compared to where we live. So you can build houses a whole bunch of different ways, but in the Netherlands, the most efficient way, like it is in England, is to build them almost entirely out of brick, so that way they'll be insulated very well and be able to retain heat during the winter months. But I gotta say, I like it, me personally. I think it's pretty cool. Also, let's see here. Seeing some people, it reminds me of Milton Keynes. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? It's like, it reminds me of that a lot. And let's see here. Hang on. How am I supposed to make living as a painter? John Connor says, it's all brick. How am I supposed to make a living as a painter? That's a good question. I don't think you do. Like, I don't think this place is for us, John Connor. But let's see here. The British are doing the solar thing too. Okay, so one thing that Matthew brought up about the solar thing is that not a lot of people in Alabama have solar panels. And yeah, that's actually a good point, Matthew. You know why we don't have solar panels?
Because we're very slow to adopt new technology because we're a little bit backwards.
It's the law in the state that actually makes
The
it
law.
yeah, pretty much impossible for us to implement solar panels. The reason being is that the law of the state of Alabama requires that even if you are not using the state's electricity companies that are providing electricity in certain areas like Alabama Power or the TVA, if you install solar panels, you still have to pay the power company even if you aren't using their power.
Are you sure?
That is the law, and it makes no sense to install solar panels in the state because you're not saving yourself money. You're having to pay for the installation costs, and then you're having to pay monthly for electricity that you're not even drawing from the power company. Otherwise, if you don't pay them, they actually have grounds legally in the state to sue you to pay them their money, which is a pretty wild thing with how it works. But that is the law in the state. I remember having to learn about that in college, and that was why they explained, because they were like, solar panels, photovoltaic cells are getting a lot more efficient, and then they said, you're probably wondering why you don't see many of them in Alabama, and then they explained why there isn't any in Alabama and why it makes no economic sense due to the state's laws to implement solar panels on any large scale.
Well, if that's true, I guess I'm not that surprised, because if y'all don't know as well, like all alcohol in the state of Alabama is controlled by the ABC, which is the Alabama Beverage Control. And I don't think it's like that in too many other states. In fact, is Alabama the only state that does that? It's like a state-controlled alcohol industry.
I don't really know. I feel like I've seen ABC stores. That's what they're called. It's the Alabama Beverage Company, I believe, is the actual name of it, if I'm right, Matthew.
I think it's either company or controls for the C.
Yeah, it's something like that. But they are the state-run monopoly on the liquor store. Like there's no independent liquor stores allowed. They're all state-run, which is
Although you can have it in the grocery stores and stuff. You can still get like a permit to sell alcohol, like for like a Publix or a Walmart or something like that. But you have to go through the ABC. To my understanding, you have to go through the ABC.
I think so. If I'm remembering right as well, I think that is the case. Alabama has some kind of weird-ish laws. They also have some laws that make a lot more sense than others in other states, to be entirely honest, when you deal with the daily basics. Like, for example, one thing that y'all may or may not know is that in Alabama, I believe this is still the case, if I'm correct, Matthew, you don't have to pay the tickets that you get from the cameras at the intersections.
That it has to be in court because first of all, if you get a ticket, pay it unless you want to go get a lawyer. But
Yeah.
but by default, you have to pay the ticket. But if you go get a lawyer, you might be able to get out of it.
Even with, I thought, Matthew, if I remember correctly, it was the law in the state that you didn't have to pay the intersection camera tickets because there was no officer present issuing the ticket.
Yeah, that's the legal question. Because technically, the officer has to be giving a ticket. There has to be a ticketing officer, meaning a human that witnessed the crime being committed, and it can't be simply technology taking a picture of it. But once again, that's something that has to be contested in court.
Yeah, I think that's still an open legal question that has not been answered by the state Supreme Court, if I'm correct, Matthew.
I believe so.
Or any other court of appeals in the state. So we don't know. Like that is something that technically you can. You might be able to get away with in Alabama, but then again, it hasn't been answered by a court. So if you try to do that, and then it ends up going to the Alabama Supreme Court, and then they rule against you, well, you're screwed. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address some stuff fairly well about our state. It's a little quirky, and that's something that a lot of European viewers don't know, is that each state in the United States of America is actually very different. A lot like many countries in the European Union are very different from each other. From state to state, laws can change almost entirely in their definition and how they're practiced. And that's something that many Americans also don't know as well, is that state laws can change huge, massive ways in almost every single respect. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Hopefully shed some light on some interesting facts about our state and really the United States as a whole. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support and allowing us to take a little bit of a look at your town in the Netherlands and also share a little bit about where we're from. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to DS, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, DS, for that support, and also for watching the video earlier. He said, thank you guys for the hard work.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying the hard work. We put in an endless amount of effort behind the scenes here on this channel to try and make sure that we can get the news out to y'all, every single one of y'all, every single day. And I got to say that it is wonderful to know that folks like you enjoy this channel and support it to help it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to George A, who puts in a $20 donation and says, work hard, guys. I smell the victory, and Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraini, and we can smell the victory too. Wake up and smell the victory, or is what a Mr. Wonderful way to say, wake up and smell the bankruptcy. That's the
wake
Russians.
up and smell the bankruptcy.
Dude, that's the Russians right now. They wake up, they're like, okay, so how do we fund the water? And they open up like the money chest, and it's got like 2 pennies in it. They're like, oh, we can survive one more day. Like, it's like, because we won't pay anyone.
Also, speaking of waking up and smelling the bankruptcy, did y'all see that super lame propaganda attempt that was going around on Twitter of someone posting a alleged receipt, which was proven to be false, claiming that Zelensky's wife went out and bought a brand new Bugatti? That was insane. I saw it going around Twitter literally everywhere. I think the company that had the fake invoice made from them, I think they're taking legal action against the person that faked the invoice, because it was going around like wildfire, like people saying, oh my God, Zelensky's wife is using the funds to go buy a Bugatti. It's like, are you joking? It's like, do people just look at the random stuff on Twitter and say, that's got to be real? Nothing on the internet is fake. It's like, they're not going out and buying Bugattis and stuff. It's like, come on now.
Dude, they 100% do that a lot on Twitter, man. People just believe whatever is put in front of them. Like when the S-500 supposedly got destroyed like a week ago, people just believe that outright without question. Also, Maddie, if I'm remembering correctly, the guy who's being sued by that company, didn't he speak at the United Nations today?
I don't know if that's the same guy or not, but yes, somebody who's very despicable was speaking at the United Nations today for some reason.
Yeah, you know, that was a really interesting one. We didn't cover that as a part of the news circuit because it was a really stupid thing to even cover, but that really annoyed, I don't know about y'all, but it personally annoyed me that the United Nations would give a voice to someone who's claiming that that Ukraine is actively conducting terrorism at this moment and genocides, which is a pretty crazy thing to claim when there's absolutely no proof or evidence of that, and you can literally travel into Ukraine freely right now and see for yourself that that's not the case. Because you know, and that's something, Matthew, that I don't understand about the pro-Russians. Is it's like, you know, you can freely travel into Ukraine as an American, and if there is a genocide going on there, it's not like it's going to be hidden. You know, it's going to be pretty public to see, a lot like the Holocaust was for anyone who was alive during World War II in Eastern Europe. It was very clear to see there was a genocide going on then. So why in the world would it be that a pro-Russian would go into Ukraine, see no genocide, and go, oh, well, they're hiding it from you? It's like, well, they're killing hundreds of thousands of people, like y'all are saying, like in an industrial way. That couldn't be hidden perfectly, completely forever, right? Like, that would make no sense, because it's never been hidden well before by anyone. But with that, I hope that does address that well, kind of just as a little bit of a thing, you know, like just a thought. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to you, Zyper, for that support. He said, healthy fun for the enforcers and happy 4th of July. And it's already the 4th here in Norway, and it's my birthday today. And also, happy birthday to you, Zyper Sniper. I think, well, never mind. I got the times all mixed up. But happy birthday to you. And he said, end the stream is good birthday gift. And thank you guys, and Slava Ukraine.
Hey, and happy birthday to you, Zyper Sniper. And I hope that you've been having an amazing birthday today. And I hope you've been celebrating the 4th of July over there in Norway. And also, I gotta say, what one hell of a day to have a birthday, Matthew. Born on the 4th of July. I think they made a movie called Born on the 4th of July. But nevertheless, I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying the stream. I hope that it is a way to top off the birthday, or at least start the birthday over there, considering that this is literally the crack of dawn in Norway. I hope that you've been enjoying the stream, and I thank you so much for being here on your birthday. I hope that everyone wishes Zyper Sniper a happy birthday, and that he has an amazing one today, because his day, I believe, is just starting, if I'm remembering the time zones correctly inside of Norway. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Zyper Sniper. Thank you for being an old guard of this channel, and thank you for being a channel legend as well. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next super chat here, this one is going to go to Plant Lord, who puts in a $20 donation, and a huge shout out. They said,
Hey!
Happy 4th to all. And did you guys hear about the blowing up of 2 different trains and 1 fuel, 1 ammo? And I heard this on 2 other channels.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I'm going to have to say, no, I did not hear about the 2 trains being blown up, Plant Lord. I thank you for the support, though, in the 5th super chat ever. But I have to say, Plant Lord, specifically about stories pertaining to trains, please, and this is a message for everyone, please be very careful about people telling stories about trains. I have never been able to find and independently corroborate a single shred of evidence about any of the train stories ever on this channel. If we had them, we'd show them, and we just don't have them. And people have been running wild with stories about trains lately. I don't know what it is, but people are getting obsessed with Russian trains. And yes, they're a big part of the logistics of the Russian Federation's army, but at the same time, it's just not a thing that's happening a lot. We can't confirm it at all. Like, we were told 1 train was captured intact by Ukrainian special forces with an S-400 on it. Another one was captured intact with Su-57s on it. I mean, literally, like, all these stories have to do with, like, Bugattis on trains. Like, as far as the Russian army is concerned, it's like the best of everything, like an S-400, some Su-57s. Next thing you know, there's going to be a Moskva-class cruiser on one of these trains. It's really weird to me why the people keep on spreading these stories about these trains. I guess it's easy to fabricate, because we have no proof over here of this thing. Matthew and me have been combing. I know Matthew has been combing, and I've been combing for proof about these stories, and we just can't find any proof on any of the train stories. So while 2 other channels may have talked about trains, we have not been able to confirm anything about the trains. So I thank you for the support, Plant Lord, in bringing that to my attention, but I generally have to say that at the moment, unless we have picture and video evidence of any of these stories, we generally have to take them as untrue, because there's just no proof to confirm that these actually happened. So I would generally, I would be a little bit leery of those channels. I don't know who they are. Some of y'all may know who they are, but I would generally be a little leery of them, because it sounds like they may just be making up stories to get people to watch, because people want to hear about Ukraine having successes. But now, because they aren't able to find the successes that would really mesh with their channel, well, they're just going to possibly fabricate them instead with really not a lot of proof, at least from what I know. But with that, I hope that does address that well, Plant Lord. Thank you for the 5th super chat to this channel ever, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to John Garner, who this time puts in a $20 donation, and a huge shout out to John as well. He said, to those in the chat, thank you for pointing my head in the right direction.
And I would have to say, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for wanting to be pointed in the right direction. We always try and point folks in the right direction all the time. Whoa, what happened, Jack? But I gotta say, we always try, and I gotta thank you. And I thank you so much for really appreciating that. We try our best to make sure that our news is as fact-checked, as accurate as possible. We work on that every single day. And I gotta say, thank you so much, John Garner, for greatly appreciating that. I can't say enough how much we really do love to know that people actually notice the kind of effort we put into this stuff, because it is a passion for us. It's not just trying to cover the news, do this as a job. This isn't a 9-to-5. This is truly a job of love. We love doing this. We love getting to report the news to all of y'all. And I thank you so much for really appreciating this channel and the efforts that we make to try and make sure that our news is as factually accurate as we can make it. And if we hear news and it isn't something that we can confirm, we don't report it. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Andy L., who puts in a $20 donation, and he's advocating very strongly for the Enforcer HQ to move from Alabama out west closer to Texas. And I'll tell you what, honestly, I would actually be open to that. But Andy says, everyone needs to watch Enforcer Matt's video that he posted today. And thank you very much, Andy, for the kind words as well. And I do recommend that y'all watch that video. So far, about 77,000 people have watched it, which is honestly higher than what I thought it was going to be, because my predictions were that it was going to be around 50,000 views or so, and I was going to be happy with that. But it looks like it's shooting its way toward 100,000 views, which is very good for a video that's kind of off the topic of a summary video. So very good to see, and thank you very much, Andy, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, thank you so much, Andy L, for really encouraging folks to go take a look at Enforcer Matt's video. I have to say, it is well worth the look. It is an amazing video. It was very well researched, very well made, very concise. People had nothing but amazing comments to say about it, and I was so happy to see that, because it is the first of many to come, not just from Matthew, but from myself. And we cannot wait for everyone to really get a look at it and really enjoy it. And also, Matthew, just to put this out there, one second, let me go to YouTube really quickly. The Enforcer Government Cheese. I wonder if I typed it in, will it pull it up? Oh my god, Matthew. It's here. It's here. It literally is. I typed in the Enforcer Government Cheese, and it literally pulled up the video.
Yeah. Man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that video might have done bigger than it was. I think the thumbnail, like not like highlighting the text or something like that, might have like done it a disfavor. But with a different thumbnail, it might like pick back up.
Man, I'm not going to lie, though. That is crazy. That is really crazy, man. This thing's been around for a year at least now, maybe a year and a half, and it's only gotten 38,000 views, and the video that you made today has already gotten 77,000 views, and has only been up for a few hours. It's already outdone the Government Cheese video by leaps and bounds. But that is crazy to think that our first actual documentary video was only 5 minutes long, so that means that yours is already longer than this one. And it was about government cheese. Like, that is really weird to think about. But it was made with nothing but stock footage, man. Like, it was literally all stock footage. Also, really quickly to show y'all that, but some of the stock footage didn't even match. Like, here, let me fast forward. Like, look at this. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Complex animations are an issue, because I couldn't make a complex animation for parity price formula, which is a big part about why government cheese ever existed. And look what I did for this.
Also known as the USDA, and they created a subsidy program called the Parity Price.
That's what I did for it. I literally just put text on the screen and then put some cows walking in the background and some stock footage. And that was parity price formula. That is where I feel like we really needed an animation, because watch the explanation and see if it makes any sense to you just listening to me talk and with no infographics.
Formula. This means that if the cost to produce the milk was more than the profit made on it, the government would buy the products at a fair price, which would keep the dairy farmers afloat. Usually they would...
That makes no sense.
Man, you sound very gleeful to be talking about this cheese.
Dude, I love the cheese, bro. Like, I love this cheese, man. Like, it was a cheese to be remembered. But, you know, it is what it is. It wasn't really that good, but the comments were really good. People really liked it. But still, with that, I hope that doesn't.
Also, by the way, I see people asking, where do I go to see these videos? We actually have a separate playlist. Enforcer, go to the main page of our channel and like scroll down. It's actually on the main page of our channel page. So if you go there, you'll see at the bottom there's a section that says Enforcer Short War Documentaries, and then actually has an entire playlist just of the documentaries, because we put out a lot of videos constantly. And scroll all the way down. It's at the bottom. You'll see it here in just a second. There it is. Short War Films. We've actually done several. Like, I've done one on drones. I've done one on the CIA bases. We did one on the gun. We did one on the Russian government assassinating people. A nuclear one. So we've actually done a decent amount. But they never really went anywhere because they were a long time ago. And they were kind of off topic, to be honest, a little bit. So we hope to grow those in the future, though. The one today is promising, I think.
Man, I'm telling you what, I'm looking through these. You didn't even put the government cheese video down here, man. You just threw that one straight off the playlist. You deliberately forgot that one. You're like, screw the government cheese. No, well, you know, that's fair, but let's see. Are all of these about war? Yeah, they kind of are, but the collapse of China, I mean, I don't know. That's not really about war. That's just more so about them sucking, you know what I mean?
Sucking?
Man, I think the hot dog man just entered the chat. But oh, dude, and then we got the shorts, the few shorts that we've made. The AK one actually did incredibly well, and the Tommy gun one also did wildly well for no reason. But anyways, enough about the channel. We do have playlists though, and that thumbnail, dude, does look killer good. But I just realized, Matthew, that we recycled a Putin way too quickly because there's the identical Putin in this thumbnail and that one.
Well, I had to have him going shush because otherwise it made no sense. Because we have Putin here mocking himself in this thumbnail. He's telling himself to be quiet about the secret CIA bases. So I had to put him there. My other option was to put Zelensky in it. And really, to be honest with you, I couldn't find a good enough picture of Zelensky to actually put in the thumbnail, to be straight up. Because the one I had gotten, he was like putting his hands up and going, "Oh my God." And I was like, that doesn't look good. It looks like he's scared about the CIA being in his country. So I had to go with Putin doing the shush sign.
Shush. Also, Matthew, you know something that someone pointed out to me a while ago? Our videos list is endless Putins. Like, literally nothing but Putins. We have a couple of G's, but it's, like, nothing but Putin. We had a Zelensky, but then we also had a that wasn't Ricey. This was Ricey.
That was the guy before him. Yeah, that's Ricey.
Yeah, and rip. But anyways, it's nothing but Putins until we get down to a certain point because the thumbnail format had changed. But this is what it looked like before. And this was an all right thumbnail format. But it wasn't the greatest.
Now, wait a minute. You see where it changed? It was right around here. Scroll down some more. It actually, the thumbnail format changed somewhere around here.
Oh, here we go.
Was,
yeah. Okay,
yep, yep. It changed with, let's see here.
This one.
I think it was
Zelensky dismissed.
Yeah, that was the one I put out. That was actually the first video that I put out after I dropped out of law school. That was the first one right there. And that's what kicked off, what was that? 4 months ago. That's what kicked off the current situation we're in with the channel, was that one video. Then the Enforcer did one. I did another one. And it started steamrolling from there. And I think at the point we left law school, I think we were at, what, 140,000 subscribers or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, now we're up to about 236. So crazy growth ever since law school was over. And that was just like 3 or 4 months ago. So insane to see, like when you really look back at it.
Also, Matthew, actually, I don't think this was the first one put out. I put out this one, and then the next day you did that one, and that was the new thumbnail format. But this one was working off of the classic thumbnail format, and it did okay. And so, because remember, I said I'm going to try and do a video again, and if it does well, then we'll know that people want to see videos again. And so then I put it out, and it got 93,000 views. And I was like, okay, people want to see videos again. And then you put out that one, and then I put out this one, and then you put out that one, and then I put out this one. And then we just kept doing that backwards and forwards.
Look, go back down for a second. Like, go back down to the ones, like, I'm not gonna lie, like our videos for some reason, I think the thumbnails weren't good or something. But like on the video up there that says Estonia deploys Dragon's Teeth, that's up there sort of at the top left corner, 37,000 views on it. Then the other one about Israeli ship hijacked, like 29,000 views. What's crazy is the video that we put out today, which was not really pertaining to any hot topic of the day, did better than those videos that were actually about hot topics. I think it's mainly because of the thumbnail format that's changed.
I think so. I'm looking around, man. It's a little bizarre, looking back in time at how many views we used to get just like 9 months ago. It was like less than 100,000. Because if y'all don't know, nowadays, I'll get y'all up to our most recent videos. Here is our average amount of views that we're getting nowadays. 259, 276, 244, 145, 300, 185, 180, 216, 270, 260, 188, 300,000, 189, 261,000. It's been bizarre. Like the amount of speed that our videos have picked up and taken off at. Like this one, 366,000 views. We would have never imagined having videos like that just 9 months ago. Like the best we thought we could get to was like 120,000, and now we're making.
Yeah, and
videos.
you gotta admit these thumbnails look a lot more exciting though. Like these look way more exciting than the ones we were putting out before.
That's true. Also, the live stream thumbnails changed a lot as well. These are all made by me, so they are completely 100%. all the same. Like they're all made by me, so there's no real difference in style here. They're like all inspired by me. But this one, by the way, y'all, this one went hard. Like this one for Macron, I gotta say that was one of the hardest thumbnails we made for a live stream ever. Like I'm not joking. But I gotta say, it is something to see how the thumbnails have evolved. It really is. But anyways, with that.
EX said Canva. Yeah. It is actually. It's Canva.
Yeah, it's Canva, 100%. Huge shout out to Canva, by the way. They have an amazing platform. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And Matthew, how many super chats do we have left? Because I don't have the spreadsheet up anymore.
Let's see here. We have about 18 left.
18? That's it?
Something like that. That's a good bit.
Whack. Well, no, I mean, we've hardly addressed any, man. Like, we've been rabbit holing like this whole time. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to John Garner once again, who puts in another 20, and huge shout out to John. He said, I love my LSA chat, and he puts in the smiley faces.
And I gotta say, I love the LSA chat as well. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support, John Garner, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I gotta thank you so much once again for supporting this channel, because you help us not only to be able to run this stream, but for the LSA chat that thrives in this stream to be possible every single day. And so, with that, I thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got one from Purple Gerbil, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to you, Purple. He said, Happy 4th, and big thanks to all you service personnel who protect our freedom to celebrate Canada Day and the 4th.
And huge shout out to all of those folks. They truly are an amazing group of folks. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and giving them a shout out, because it is their work who helps to continue to make sure that Western nations continue to thrive. It is those first responders that really make up the bulk of the civil service, not only in the United States, but in other countries like Canada as well. And you got to give them a huge shout out. I know we have plenty of them here tonight, plenty of police officers, plenty of firefighters. And while people may or may not appreciate their efforts, it is incredibly certain that without their endless daily efforts, normal society and civilization here in the Western world simply just would not function. And so a huge shout out and thanks to them. And I hope that they also have an amazing 4th of July, as we are only 17 minutes away from celebrating the 4th of July here on stream. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one here goes to Bilo, and he puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to you, Bilo, for that support. He said, new subscriber here, and hey, he said, I appreciate your objectivity and hard work, and happy 4th of July from Canada.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Bilo, and huge thanks for you saying happy 4th of July from Canada. Y'all have Canada Day up there. I think that's around the time of the 4th of July, but not really. It's a different day. But still, I thank you so much once again for support, Bilo, and thank you so much for the happy 4th of July. I hope when Canada Day comes around, I'm not really sure if it's come around or passed yet, sadly. I forgot. But nevertheless, I hope you have an amazing Canada Day as well, and I thank you so much once again for support and celebrating American independence. I'll be entirely honest with y'all. Independence Day is a wonderful day for America because it created the United States, but at the same time, like, a whole bunch of British people are going to be like, oh, you stupid Americans. I know it's coming in the live chat. I have no ill will towards the United Kingdom. I think the United Kingdom is an amazing country, the second most integral part of the Western world, at least here in the Atlantic, right behind the United States. It is in my mind, historically, Britain or America has really been the leader of the Western world. They are an incredible country. They are really the foundation of all modern democracies. A lot of the ideas and rights that we take for granted these days in most Western countries really had their founding in the United Kingdom. The United States then took them and ran with them, and that's why a lot of other Western European countries, like Germany, now have a lot of inspiration off of what is really British common law, is because of the British. Got to give them a load of credit, because if it wasn't for if it really wasn't for a combination of all of Western Europe really blending together and being what it is, we wouldn't have the world we have today. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a very generous $50 donation from Brian Morgan. And thank you very much, Brian, for that support as well. He said, take one from the Peanut Gallery.
And I thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the massive support to this channel. It is absolutely huge, Brian Morgan, and thank you for your first super chat ever, and deciding that this channel is worthwhile to support at all, and not only just to support at all, but to support so massively. And we will make sure to take one from the Peanut Gallery. But Brian, I've seen that comment a couple of times over the past 2 days. I've actually seen it in a Discord DM, Huge shout out to Hyvel and Tuft, longtime channel viewer. I saw that Hyvel and Tuft disagreed with me tonight, but that's fine. Yeah, I didn't expect that, but that's okay. But you know, that's how it works on this channel. And I thank Hyvel and Tuft for having his own personal opinions, because it's good to have some variety and some different ideas. And I remember he disagreed with me about Turkey. But I think you got a good point with that, though, especially as far from a Western centric perspective, like we have. It's a fair point that you made for sure, Hyvel and Tuft. But beyond that, I got to say, huge thank you, Brian Morgan, for the support again. But I don't like to view the live chat as the peanut gallery. The peanut gallery always sounds a little bit mocking, like the voices don't matter. The voices of the LSA matter so much because they make what this stream is into what it is every day. I mean, the voices of the Lee Spring Army are truly a molding part of what the experience on this channel is like for everyone every single day. A lot of the same people who were here on really day 4 are here 861 days later and have really made such a huge impact on the culture that we have here in the Lee Spring Army that you really just can't have anywhere else on the internet. And so I got to thank you so much once again for support. And we are going to take one from the amazing, you know what, peanut gallery. Let me change that a little bit. We're gonna take it from the amazing. Let's see, what should we call it, Matthew? The Assembly of the LSA. I think that's a
the
pretty
Assembly.
Good one. Yeah, the Assembly.
The Parliament.
Kind of like France, you know, the National Assembly. We'll call it the Assembly of the LSA. But let's take one from the Assembly of the LSA, thanks to none other than the incredible Brian Morgan.
All right, and this one goes to Cheezers. And Cheezer says, my question is, Putin said they will shoot down USA drones, and what will happen if they shoot down a Reaper drone?
That's a good question. I really don't know, because it's kind of a little bit of a gray area, because no one's going to get hurt or killed if they shot it down, so the United States could try and downplay the seriousness of it, because it's not like a life was lost or lives were lost in the shooting down of the aircraft. But at the same time, it is U.S. government property, which is funded and operated by the United States Department of Defense. And so for the large part, I would have to say, in my opinion, I'd have to say, currently, I don't think anything would come out of it. I don't know if anything would come out of that in the future, even if things did change. I have a feeling that the U.S. government will most likely downplay that sort of an incident, or if they upplayed it, it wouldn't be to a severe level. They would still play it on a low key, but they would still react to it. But it won't be anything incredibly severe like us immediately entering the war because of a drone being shot down. I'm fairly certain about that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the huge support, Brian Morgan, and helping this channel to keep on running and making sure that we could address a live chat question from the Assembly of the LSA. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Veteran RN, who puts in a $20 donation. And a huge shout out to you, veteran registered nurse, for that support. They said, Alabama sounds like a cabal cartel mafia. And let me tell you something, Veteran RN. I'm not going to get political here, but Alabama does have a corruption problem. If Alabama was trying to get into NATO, they would be not let in. And they'd be told, you need to fix your corruption problems, because they have some. But Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much for the support, Veteran RN, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running all the way from the United Kingdom. And you have some very interesting comments about the great state of Alabama. I would say there is some issues. I would be very incorrect to say that there's not issues that need to be addressed here in the state of Alabama. I will say this, however, I absolutely love the state. I love the people in Alabama. To be quite honest, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else but Alabama. I was born and raised here, never really have left the state except for a vacation here and there when I was a little bit younger. Well, when I say younger, I mean like the last vacation we ever had was like 4 years ago, I think, and it was a road trip through America, and I decided on that road trip that Alabama was where I wanted to be, and this is where I'd want to stay. I love the place, I really do, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. I will riff on places. I'll riff on Alabama. I'll riff on Detroit. I mean, Detroit has been the butt of jokes on this channel, but it doesn't mean that I hate these places or I'm just wanting to despise the people in them. No. Actually, the people really throughout America are all incredibly nice people, and you can get along with a lot of them if you just get to talk to them. Thing is, though, is that everywhere's got flaws, and the flaws are always funny to pick at and always funny to joke with. But with the state of Alabama, in all seriousness, while I absolutely love the state and its people, Alabama does have some issues, and I wish that they could get fixed. Of course, I can't really get political, and I can't really talk about that a lot more than just that point. But if I was the governor of the state or had any major political say-so in the state, I would start to change some things that I feel would be a necessity to make sure that the state is able to root out some elements of corruption that take away from the greatness of the state, and make sure to improve the overall condition not only of the state's civil operations, but also just governmental and administrative duties, which sometimes are hampered due to varying levels of corruption in different departments and different bureaus of the government. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, Ing X said, cool, Enforcer, where was your last trip? It was this giant road trip, okay? It was actually the road trip from hell, is how I remember it. We drove from Alabama all the way by car through the Midwest to Salt Lake City. And then we drove all the way from Salt Lake City up into Montana. And then we drove all the way to Billings. And then through Yellowstone. And then back through Wyoming, straight down into Denver, all the way back across the United States to St. Louis, and then straight down through Paducah and Nashville, right back to where we are in Birmingham. It was a freaking car ride from hell. We never stopped driving. It was like 16 to 20 hour days in the car. We never got out. I hated it. It was like the worst vacation I had ever had. Like it was, yes, memories were made, sure, but I wish I had gotten out of the car a little bit because it never freaking stopped. Like the car, like, man, I don't know about you, but that felt like the road trip from hell.
Man, that was the road trip from hell. I don't ever want to repeat that again. It wasn't supposed to be that way either, but we had one particular grumpy person on the trip that we ended up making the drive all the way back in one day, which was a shame because that was a disaster. No, we made that drive back in one day. We were like, wait a minute, was it 2 days?
No, it was 2 days. Remember, because we started the trip in Billings, like at this point, remember, and then we drove down to Jackson Hole in Wyoming, and then that's when the shit started. Remember, like just to go over the whole story, the shit started there, and then we drove straight from Jackson Hole, straight through Denver, straight into, wait a minute, no, we actually went back through Nebraska, and I think we stopped in Kearney, because it was literally like nighttime by this point, and so then we stopped there, and then the next day we woke up, drove from Kearney through Des Moines, through Omaha and Des Moines, to Davenport, or somewhere around this area, then drove all the way down Interstate 74 and 55, and then got on, I think, like, what was it? It was 64, and then we turned on to Interstate 24, went through Paducah, and then straight through Nashville, and then down to Huntsville, and then we literally drove the rest of the way all the way to Birmingham, and that entire trip from Kearney, Nebraska to Birmingham, Alabama was done in a single day. We literally covered a third of the country, like 900 miles or something in one day, and I did not want to do that again. It was the worst vacation I ever. That's probably the reason why we've never been on another vacation, is because of the deep-seated trauma I got from that trip. But it was the worst. I mean, it was the worst. It was terrible. And I remember you felt like you were just on a damn ship, like in World War I, being sent over to Europe, because there was like no break. You just sat there in this car. You get car sick. You just keep going. You never stopped. It was a damn nightmare, and that was our last trip. Just to answer that question for you, Ingex, I didn't really enjoy it that much. I think you can tell. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Davo LBC, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to you, Davo, for that support. And he says, I live in... Whoa, Jack, hold on. Let me read this one. Whoa! Okay, he's just talking about the law here, so we talked about the Alabama. So he said, I live in California, and we have those stupid ass laws here, when you can have solar, that you can pay the electric company, a private company. I call BS. Pennsylvania has state stores to get your booze.
Interesting. So Pennsylvania has the same thing. How many states have a state-run liquor store? Oh, let me go pull that up. How many states have state-run liquor stores? Alabama is one of 17 states that regulates the sale of beverage alcohol. So actually, it's a very small minority of states that have any kind of state regulation on the sale of alcoholic beverages. That's really interesting. So
if you want your booze, you got to get it through the state.
I'll just have to go to the hairdresser and get myself a bottle of gin. Or something like that. Oh, goodness. Oh, that Lord. one of the dark moments of the state right there. But with that, oh man, but with that, I thank you for sharing that with us though about Pennsylvania. That's actually really interesting to hear, and I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to hear cool facts about other states like Pennsylvania. I don't really know a lot about other states and their specifics. I'll be honest about that. I just don't. But it's really interesting to hear about other states like that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Davo, LBC. And also, yeah. Okay, so Davo, that's the same thing we have in Alabama. If you set up solar panels, you have to pay the electric company money for some reason. I don't know why that works that way. Well, I kind of do. It's because they're kind of like government sanctioned monopolies, and so if everyone started to use solar, these companies are losing money, and so they kind of had to be subsidized by the public to be able to function. So then they still get their money. Kind of messed up when you think about it. It really doesn't incentivize a lot of people to go solar if you wanted to, and if you wanted to try and find a way to shave some money off of your electric bill, you really don't get the chance here in some states like Alabama and California. Pretty rough deal. But beyond that, I would say that is a pretty goofy thing. Like, just looking at that, like, I don't mean to be political here. I don't think this is political. I think this is just like a qualitative assessment of the issue. That is a pretty dumb law. Like, right? Like, I think everyone can kind of agree with that. Like, why in the world do you have to pay a semi-private, semi-government-run company money when you're not using their service? It doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. I'm in favor of nuclear plants, personally. I'm in favor of nuclear power. I think we need to build those plants. The technology is going that way anyway. You know, AI and all these new servers and buildings they're building for Google and things like that, they need tremendous amounts of energy. And they've already said that nuclear is really the only way to generate that much power and not have to, like, you know, burn a crap ton of coal. So I think we ought to go ahead and start building them and just make sure that we have a lot of safety involved in it, and we should be good to go.
Hell, man, I would disagree with you. I think nuclear fusion is the way forward because they finally made the breakthrough where fusion was possible for a short amount of time. Remember that? It was while we were running the stream that happened. That was huge. And I think,
yeah, but that's just like a minor thing, though. It's like nowhere near like fusion actually being like deployable as a power source.
But Matthew, remember, every 1,000-mile journey begins with one step, and that was the one step. Just like they split the atom way back in the day, and they finally figured out that that was possible. And it wasn't viable as an energy source yet, but they knew it was possible, and then they worked off of that until they were eventually able to conduct nuclear fission. We're at that point now in nuclear fusion. We're finally starting to move from it being a fantasy into a reality, and I think that nuclear fusion is something that the U.S. got. Now I will be a little bit political on this because I'm very strongly opinionated when it comes to nuclear power, or really the future of the American power grid. I think that the United States should pour massive amounts of funding into institutions that are conducting research on nuclear fusion, so that way the United States can triumph in the nuclear technology sphere, and we can have safe and practically unlimited power in the future thanks to nuclear fusion. It would be inexpensive. It would be the price of pennies a month for most people. It would massively help out folks with their budgeting. I mean, what would you rather want? An electrical bill that costs maybe, over $100 or a couple of $100 a month, depending on what kind of house you have? Or would you rather have electricity cost almost nothing? I mean, just a few bucks, or maybe even less than $1. That would be amazing. That would be true. That would truly be profound to be able to have that kind of technology available for the electrical grid. And that is something I believe that the U.S. government should really be looking into, because considering that we are starting to hear, and people have been hearing this for a while, and we keep on figuring out a way to extend the usability of fossil fuels, but considering that there is a finite supply of it, and it is getting more and more difficult to drill for, and also, of course, process, and because of that reason, it's becoming more and more expensive over time, we have to find a way to move America, specifically, and hopefully the rest of the Western world, out of this kind of a predatory deal, because it's going to get pretty competitive on in the future to be able to have a constant supply of fossil fuels. It already is right now, if many people are paying attention. We should try and move America out of that, so that way we can rise above what will be coming, which will be the resource wars for fossil fuels and the availability of them, and we should be able to operate on our own the way that we really need to be, for strategic reasons and also for economic reasons as well. But I think that that would be an amazing way to go. I don't know about y'all, you could put y'all's comments in on that, y'all could agree, disagree, but I certainly think that that would be a great way forward for the future. And not only that, it appeases everyone. It's cheap. it's clean. It doesn't cause that much pollution or any pollution at all, especially nuclear fusion. There's really no pollution whatsoever. So you appease every side. I mean, I don't think that's something that anyone could disagree with there, in my honest opinion.
Maybe so, but I think they got to start doing it, man. Like I think fusion's a far way off personally, but the fission, we can do those. We've been doing them for a long time, and also the people that are scared of nuclear reactors and power plants, they always cite the Chernobyl disaster, and there's really no merit in that, honestly, because the Chernobyl disaster was such a unique instance. A disaster in designing the plant itself. There was a major flaw in the actual design of the power plant, which caused the disaster, and also incompetence as well. It was run by one of the most incompetent states that's ever existed, which was the Soviet Union. So presumably, the U.S. could do this on a mass scale and not have any issues. And also, much more safer design now. Like the design of these plants are so safe now, or at least we're told, that it's safe to go, and it's the only way forward. Because otherwise, what are we going to do? Start building a ton more of like coal power plants? That's definitely not sustainable. So we got to find something, and it's either solar, it's nuclear, or wind. And I don't think wind's a viable option either.
Well, we're getting into a rabbit hole now, but I will talk about this because I love infrastructure talk, whether it be just road infrastructure, rail infrastructure, or energy infrastructure. It's always a fun thing to talk about to me. One thing that I find a problem is that right now there seems to be there seems to be really unrealistic notions. Just to give a critique on the discussions that we're having in America currently on where the energy grid will be going, there seems to be two unrealistic camps that I'm seeing. There's the one camp that believes wind and solar can fix everything, and there's the other camp that wants to just literally build an endless amount of coal and oil power plants. One, you can't build an endless amount of coal and oil power plants because the resources there are finite, and not only that, operating those in that kind of mass, it becomes very expensive to do that sort of a thing, and it requires a lot of manpower, which probably will not be available. The other thing is that wind and solar is absolutely ridiculous because there is no way to ramp it up or ramp it down with the demands of the grid. The grid, there is no such thing as storing electricity. Electricity has to be made and consumed immediately, and the amount of electricity in the grid has to be the exact amount and just a little bit extra than what is needed. You have to be able to match that perfectly for it to work. If you cannot do that, you will end up having blackouts and power surges because the amount of electricity available is a lot less than what the people need at that time. So you have to be able to find some kind of power production that is, of course, it can fluctuate with the demand, and it's also controllable. Wind and solar will never do that.
Well, we've got battery technology now that's catching up to the power like creation methods. Like we've got ways, for example, that Tesla's creating, to my understanding, that can store a ton of power in smaller, compact forms that could act as like buffers. So when there is low periods in the grid, they could simply make up for it by providing the battery power that's stored from, like, for example, if it's solar during the day when there's sunlight, it stores that energy for the nighttime when there is no light. That's a possibility, and the farther along that battery technology gets, the farther along the whole like concept will be.
Yeah, but battery technology, from what I know, on the megawatt level, it's not really there yet, is it?
I think they are making megawatt like huge battery banks. They're not like the size of a building, I don't think. But I don't know. I don't know enough to really say for certain, but I think they are.
Because from what I understand right now, battery technology is either so inefficient it's not really worthwhile, or it is so voluminous in its size and the amount of resources it consumes, it's not really worthwhile for that reason either. And for that reason, and also on top of that, it doesn't really like also, how would that work? Because like, let's say there's a rainy season, like a monsoon season, where it's always cloudy and it's always raining and photovoltaic cells just don't work and the wind's so strong the turbines have to shut off, otherwise they'll sustain damage. How in the world do the batteries last that long? Like, how in the world do they last for weeks on end? Like what if these batteries are only usable for, say, maybe a few days and then they run out of charge and then the entire grid is screwed and then it's just rolling blackouts until the monsoon season's over? I feel like the power generation needs of the future must be, at least in terms of their responsiveness, the same as they've always been. They have to react exactly to what the grid needs, and that's why nuclear is the way forward. It's not oil and coal, and it's not wind and solar. It is nuclear. It is something that people have been scared about because really, to be quite honest, there's a lot of reasons that people would want you to be scared. There's not really that much money to be made in nuclear, but it is certainly the way forward. 100%. It is clean. It takes up almost no room. Solar panels take up an insanely high amount of room, and also wind farms take up a very high amount of room as well. Coal and oil are just naturally pretty nasty. I mean, you can even put as many filters as you want in them. They're still going to be fairly nasty to deal with and polluting. Nuclear is the way forward for everyone. It solves everyone's problems. It takes up no room.
Although the nuclear does create one problem, though, that we've really never been able to solve, and it's the nuclear waste from these plants. We've created Superfund sites to sort of store this nuclear waste across, I think, some parts of the Midwest. We've done that, but there's really no way to really get rid of the nuclear waste really safely, or to be perfectly honest, we end up having to put it on land, and it ruins the land, to my understanding. I don't really know what we're going to do about the nuclear waste part of it, but that'll have to be solved at some point.
From what I know, Finland has actually constructed a permanent nuclear waste storage facility. So we could just ship all of the nuclear waste to Finland, or we could build one of those on our own in a remote location in the western United States where there's really no one around. So that way, there's no NIMBY people, and then you can go put it there. But I feel like, and also another thing, here's an idea. If we don't like it that much, and considering that space travel is becoming a lot cheaper nowadays than it is in the past, why not just take the nuclear waste, shoot it off into space? I don't think that would cause that much of an issue.
Yeah, maybe so. Shooting off into, I don't know, man. Like, I get the sound of it goes off into oblivion, but at the same time, like, it feels like we're polluting space at that point, even though we would never see it again. I don't know. It just feels wrong. It's like littering. I got
a good idea. Shoot it off into space, but make sure that it has an orbit where it will eventually get pulled into the sun, either evaporating from or disintegrating from the sheer heat, or actually just being crushed by the mass of the sun. One or the other. It won't be our problem from that point forward.
Well, see, that would cause even a worse problem. Is in the sun we go supernova because you're throwing in the nuclear material into it.
It wouldn't.
I don't know though. Should we throw nuclear material into the sun though? Is that a good idea?
I personally, I would say it probably wouldn't make that big of a deal. I'm not a big fan of it, but if you don't want it anywhere on Earth, you could always shoot it off into space. It's an idea, and if space travel is so cheap, it's viable at that point to do something like that just for waste disposal. Why not? But one thing I would personally say though is that I believe that we should probably keep it here on Earth in a permanent storage location, because who's to say that in the future we don't find a way to harness some sort of additional abilities out of nuclear waste? There may be a possibility for that one day, and why shoot off something that we might be able to use?
That's probably, like, if I don't have the smarts for this, I'll be perfectly honest, but someone out there that's a nuclear scientist will have to come up with a smart way to make some money and actually use that waste and convert it to something else to where it's actually usable for a different industry. Because if they can do that, that would be a gold mine for whoever comes up with that method.
I think so. I mean, but getting off of this rabbit hole, because we've rabbit holed so long with y'all, Matthew and me, I think, are fairly certain. We vary a little bit in the execution of this, but I think Matthew and me both agree nuclear is the future.
Yes.
And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well for all of y'all, just in case y'all are wondering, what is our stance on power in America? It's nuclear. We're both in agreement of that. Matthew likes fission. I like fusion. Fusion hasn't really come along.
I like fusion. I still think it's close.
Oh, it's coming. I promise you, Matthew. If they make a breakthrough where they actually are able to conduct fission at all, even for just a few milliseconds, it's coming around. They're going to get it. Probably in the next 10 to 15 years, I would say, but it's going to happen.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I hope so.
I hope so as well. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. I hope y'all enjoyed that little conversation. That was a fun one. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next super chat goes to Miranda Nelson, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge shout out to Miranda as well. And they said, I'd recommend that you set your router to load balance between two ISPs. Not that hard. Miranda, the only catch is, I have thought of that idea before. We only have one option for an ISP. That's the sad part. Our other option would be to use a Starlink, and the broadband speed on a Starlink for our location is not that good. Not as good as the cable or the actual landline or whatever it's called. But we actually don't have the option of two ISPs, but we would have done that. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel keep it running. Thank you for throwing in an idea. But to be quite honest, it seems like, Maddie, I'm not wrong here. I mean, it was a noticeable difference. I literally just turned turned off the internet and restarted it on the computer and everything fixed itself. So I think it was that easy. Like, I think it was actually that easy, thank God. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Thank you so much once again for support, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $17 donation and says, Happy 4th to the LSA.
And happy 4th to the entirety of the LSA. It's been the 4th of July now for 10 minutes. And damn, thank you, LSA Rocks, for the unbelievable support. That is crazy, right there. Thank you. But still, thank you so much for wishing us a happy 4th of July. Thank you so much for the support and the kind words to everyone in the LSA. And I hope that everyone in the Lee Spring Army has an amazing 4th of July. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to LSA Rocks, who just threw in that $100 donation. Massive support, and huge shout out to LSA Rocks once again for supporting the channel bigly. He said, good show once again, and LSA.
And LSA, baby! And thank you so much for the support, LSA Rocks, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you throwing in unbelievably massive support like that, we wouldn't be going great googly moogly on stream. And so that, thank you so much once again. That is incredibly kind of you. We thank you so much once again for throwing in massive amounts of support to this channel pretty much every single day that we've been on air. And I thank you so much once again for always being here with the channel and always saying in your name that the LSA rocks, because it does. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, I'm seeing, Matthew, so many interesting conversations being brought up still about the future of energy production here in America. I gotta say, y'all, I know, like, I'll say this. I think this is an okay statement to make, Matthew. I think this will remain kind of on par with our channel. This isn't a political statement, by the way. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know about y'all, but I wish politics in the modern American sense would stop being the way it is now on both sides, and we would move back to what sounds like boring things but are so wildly interesting when you really get into them, like the future of the energy grid or something along those lines. I wish we still had those kinds of discussions in the modern American political sphere. We don't see those anymore on either side, simply because they're just not interesting enough for most people. It's not sensational enough, but I love conversations like that. I love seeing people paying attention to it because it's such a important part of how America and every modern country in the world functions, and it's such an interesting thing to talk about. Even if there's differences in opinion, it is just such a cool thing, like, to me. But with that, I hope
who wants to hear about nuclear fusion versus fission, where you have two people going at it about their, golf swing?
Yeah, what would you rather hear? Would you rather hear about how we're going to try and refit the energy grid one way or another for the future, or would you rather hear about who plays golf better? That's my thing. I just want to say, folks, not throwing this out there, not getting political, but if you're still around in 2040 and you'd want to vote for someone for president, vote for Enforcer, because I'm going to be bringing this kind of stuff back to the table. But with that, I hope that does address that best I can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Steve Alexander, who puts in a $15 donation, and huge shout out to Steve for that support as well. He said, if you team up with the LSA's Deep South Division, you'd have a film crew. You could make Ukraine war reenactments, like the quote-unquote throw me all the guns trench video and the hide-and-seek drone dance video.
That would be an interesting idea. Something that we've actually has been brought up to us as an idea in the past is doing the way the person said it, I was like, I don't really like the sound of that. They said John Wick style videos. Y'all know my body is not built for John Wick videos. Let's be real. But I still think it'd be kind of cool to make little shows. I think it'd be neat. Maybe, make it to where the LSA is like the hero of the story, like a group of people who represent the LSA. I think that'd be really cool. But that's way down the line because that would take like a production budget and everything. And we certainly do not make that kind of money for a production budget like that. But still, I like the idea. And I think that's a really cool thing. We might do that at some point way years down the road. But still, I thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, huge shout out to Michael Mervigill, who put in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Michael. And like I said, for that support. I don't see a comment attached to it, but of course, thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running. And with that, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Tom Exman, who also puts in a 10. And he said, happy 4th of July to everyone.
And happy 4th of July to everyone. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is wonderful to know that everyone's wishing each other a happy 4th of July. And we hope that y'all truly have a great one. And so with that, thank you so much once again for that incredible support and Tom X-Men and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope we address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got one from Neil Vizanot, who puts in a 10, who says, I think any corrupt officials should be forced to spend the night with Chris's mum.
I think that would violate, what was it, Matthew? The 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. Like, I think that would
It's so cruel and it's so unusual.
Let me make sure that I'm getting that amendment right. Yep, that's it. It's the 8th Amendment. I think that violated the 8th Amendment, Neil Vizanot, but still, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, that is a violation of the 8th Amendment that has been deemed unconstitutional already by the Supreme Court, just by mention. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Chris. And this is not Chris's mom. This is the Chris. And he puts in a $10 donation. He said, guys, the U.S. had given a good number of Switchblade drones to the Ukrainians early in the war, and I haven't seen much video of these drones. So were they a failure or just kept under wraps for OPSEC? Oh, now, real quick, what I know about the Switchblade is they were very expensive. And actually, I believe they'd actually gotten a small amount of Switchblades, and they were quickly used up. That was my understanding of it. And they haven't been sent anymore, I don't think. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that's the exact same thing I heard, but they were considered largely a failure just due to their cost per use, which was considered to be uneconomical by Ukraine, and it was really considered uneconomical by America as well, and that's why we've never sent any more, is because the impact they had for the cost of the system wasn't really a good return on the investment. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what I understand. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a 10 and says Zelensky to knock Putin out in the first round. Man, I would pay to see that.
100%. Now, that would be a pay-per-view I would buy. And I got to say, that would happen. I don't think anyone would disagree. Putin's kind of an older man. Zelensky's a pretty young buck with some sprite in him, some spirit in him. He beat him, I say. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 10 from Darren Quinn once again. He says Zelensky to knock out Tucker Carlson on live YouTube.
Oh, come on. Like, at least let him get through the interview first. Like, at least give him the courtesy. But still, I gotta think.
Zelensky's gonna stop mid-interview and say, okay, Tucker, stand up and fight like a man. Go ahead and fight like a man. Put up your fists. And he's gonna be like,
that's it. Dude, better yet, Zelensky's gonna say, he's gonna take his belt off and say, bend over the chair. And Tucker's gonna go, please,
whoa,
no!
what the hell?
And then Zelensky's gonna start whipping him with the belt or something.
Hey,
like
yo. Whoa.
Dude, what the hell are you talking about? That's like a normal thing.
Hey.
What happened? What the hell do you mean, Jack? But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Matthew's trying to make it sound weird, but it's not. So
whatever happens, though, Tucker's always gonna have that goofy laugh.
Dude, I have a goofy laugh. What do you mean by that? Like, I have the stupidest
His
laugh.
is terrible. His is like, you know how the really, really, really like billionaire people laugh. They laugh with that like, oh, it's like they laugh in rich, like McLarens and Bugattis and stuff like that. Tucker Carlson is like the wannabe, like billionaire laugher, like with his laugh. It's like, I don't know what, he is so forced. Like it sounds fake.
I think it probably is.
Kind of like him.
Oh man, kind of like me.
No, kind of like him.
Who's him?
Tucker Carlson.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you know, if you want to call my laugh fake. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the Tucker v Zelensky fight incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
And the next one goes to Burbo, who puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to you for that support as well. They said, might want to check your modem/router for devices connected to your network. Also contact your ISP for them to spot check your connection, or even try replacing the hardware, if any.
You know what? We might want to consider that. We might want to consider that at some point in the future. But I still have to say, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for giving us some tech tips. We've been getting so many of them tonight, and I love to know that a lot of y'all care enough that y'all would actually super chat to send in tech tips. That is incredibly kind of y'all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to JMP Traveler, who puts in a 10 and says, treats for Mr. Corgi. An FYI, 1,000-year-old Viking settlement was found in Newfoundland, Canada, called Lansulaux Meadows.
And thank you for the support. And that is very interesting to hear that they found a Viking settlement in Newfoundland. You know what's funny is that the British explorers who found this island said, what should we call this newfound land? And then they just literally called it Newfoundland. Like they didn't even try. Like, think about that, Matthew. This is literally just the words Newfound land. And that's the name.
That's true, but to say it really fast, instead of Newfoundland, say Newfoundland.
Yeah, and then it sounds neat. But then when you really think about the damn name they gave it, it's literally just Newfoundland. It's like, isn't that the whole damn continent? Like, isn't that all Newfoundland? Like, I don't know. I feel like I have a problem with the people who named this island, and I personally want to speak to them because I don't get the naming convention going on here. But beyond that, that is really cool to hear that they found one, because the Vikings actually made it around a lot. I mean, they had so much impact on everything that was going on during the early Dark Ages, or well, not really the Dark Ages, the early Middle Ages is the best way to call it. I don't like calling it the Dark Ages because that makes it sound barbaric, and it wasn't really barbaric. It was just a little backwards at some points. Just to put that a different way. But beyond that, I laughed like an evil maniac right there. Sorry, y'all. But anyways, moving on from that, they really got around. And I have to say, it's cool to think about how much of an impact they had and how much they changed so many countries. They changed Britain a lot. I mean, you know, the Normans, which were Vikings, ended up becoming the ruling family of England, and then later on the United Kingdom. That is incredibly cool to think about, because the entirety of the rest of the UK is Anglo-Saxons and Celts. That's it. And then they were all ruled by Normans, which make up like none of the population, which is a really just interesting fact about like the Viking impact on a country just like the UK, or really any other country for that example. Like hell, France. I mean, France was impacted a lot by Vikings. Really everyone was impacted a lot by Vikings, including Italy. Italy got their asses beat by Vikings, like, just endlessly, especially during the very early parts of the Middle Ages. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and I thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Boulder Boy, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Boulder Boy, as well. He said, may all of the LSA have a great Independence Day.
And thank you so much for the support, and I hope that everyone does have an incredible Independence Day, and many more to come. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kush, who puts in a $10 donation, and says, okay, and also, by the way, they put in something at first that was a little political, but they sent us a replacement question. They said, do you and the Enforcer play video games? And if yes, what's your favorite one? For me, I do play video games from time to time. I'll be honest with you, I've been very busy the last couple of days and haven't had the chance. But when I do, I typically play like GTA 5. I've been waiting for a GTA 6 for a good minute. Also, Fallout 4 is a pretty good one. And also, I like Forza Horizon 3 or 4, whichever one it is, the new one. But Enforcer, what about you?
I play video games a pretty okay amount. Sometimes, like Matthew, I'll go a few days. Not as much as Matthew, though. Every few days, I'll play a video game. My favorite go-to is War Thunder, simply because it's just a quick and easy game to get into. You can get into some matches and have some fun instantly. But I've played quite a wide variety of games. I could tell you a favorite of a game of every genre. Like, the grand strategy games, Victoria 3 is probably my favorite. Very modern title, actually, but still one of my favorites. And then probably another one of my grand strategy games, a runner-up, would be Anno 1800. I love Anno 1800. Such a good game. As far as tactical battle, well, strategic / tactical war games, love Warno. I think it's one of the best that ever came out in that kind of a category. As far as any other kind of game, City Builders are kind of rough to come by that are good, but Manor Lords is an incredibly good one. It's just that it isn't really that fleshed out of a game. They're fleshing it out as we speak. Like, they're constantly working on it, but it's a really good game for what it is. But I could go on and on and on. There are great games in every single category. But yes, I do play video games quite a good bit. In my free time, it's either that or I go shooting at the range, one or the other. Usually video games end up being kind of the norm. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. Amy Mason, you are correct. War Thunder is the best video game if you want to see military secrets leaked. And if you hang out in the War Thunder forums long enough, you may be blessed yourself with seeing a classified manual literally just delivered right into your hands by some idiot out there in some armed forces in the world who doesn't like how a piece of equipment is represented in game. Don't y'all love that? But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Neil Vizanot, who puts in a 10 and says, today is the first time I found out about the Army's mobile Burger King and Taco Bells. I think set them up in Ukraine and get the Russian troops to surrender with a good food.
I think so. And they also have a McDonald's. I think they have every major chain in their mobile, which is so cool. But I've heard the food isn't as great from the mobile places. But if you've ever been in the service, let us know in the chat. Is it as good in those mobile posts as it is in a stationary fast food restaurant here in America? I would love to know. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and throwing out a pretty cool idea. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sergusei, who puts in a $7 donation and says, hi, LSA, and have you heard of such a weapon as rods from God? And if so, what's your opinion on such a weapon?
I have heard about that weapon. It was actually represented really interestingly in the video game Call of Duty Ghosts. It was called the Odin system, but it was a rod from God kind of a weapon. It's really the only time that it's ever been depicted in pop culture, from what I know. But the concept is that you take these giant tungsten rods and you just drop them in orbit, and they would pick up so much speed and velocity that by the time they hit the ground, they would have a devastating impact. It would almost be close to like a nuclear-like explosion, but without the radioactive fallout. In my opinion, I'm not really a big fan of the weapon just due to the cost of the system. From what we understand, it was never implemented into a practical service simply because they were too expensive. To get an entire system up there and then just have these rods sitting around would be pretty tough to do. And not only that, you wouldn't really be able to stop it from being interfered with. Really, anyone could just send up their own crews and interfere with them however they want and mess with them and possibly change the trajectory of where they land and all that kind of stuff. So I would say I'm not really a big fan of the system, but I think it's an incredibly cool one in concept. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to A-Star, who puts in a $5 donation and said, it's all fun and games until you hear, what the hell's a kilometer? Happy Independence Day.
And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I know exactly what meme you're talking about. It's that guy with a minigun and the bald eagle on his shoulder. He's like, what the f is a kilometer? And then like the Star Spangled Banner's playing in the background. And the eagle goes, squaw, and all that crap. I know that meme. I love that one. And still, thank you for the support. Thank you for wishing us a happy 4th of July. And we hope you all have a great one as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jaden Saxman, who puts in a 5 and says, happy early 4th and long live the LSA. And my question is, what would it take to get A-10s into Ukraine? And would they be effective or rendered null due to the drones?
I would say A-10s would largely be rendered null. Great aircraft, but not for the Ukrainian battlefield. F-16s would be a lot better. I feel like the A-10s have many vulnerabilities, and not only that, they're just they're just not really made for a modern battlefield anymore. They were really made for the battlefields of the Gulf War, and even then they were kind of getting a little dated at that. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to LSA Master Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 5 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order. And take one from the chat. And happy Independence Day.
Hey, thank you so much for the support, LSA Master Sergeant Figment. And everyone hit that like button. It's an order. It really is an order. And also, thank you so much once again for support, LSA Master Sergeant Figment. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, has there been any confirmation that North Korean soldiers have arrived in Ukraine?
No, not at the moment. We are still waiting for them. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in the 5 and said, an explosion happened at the General Dynamics Ordnance and Tactical Systems in Arkansas today. And he said, 2 dead. Thoughts? I live about an hour away, and it's pretty big news here.
Dang, that's unfortunate to hear. I couldn't tell you whether I actually don't know about that instance. I hate to hear that 2 folks died in the explosion. That's terrible to hear. I would assume it may have been a workplace accident. Sabotage can't always be the answer. That one may have been a workplace accident. Hopefully, an investigation by OSHA will uncover what that was, because I'm sure OSHA is already on the case, and they're already trying to look into if there was any workplace guidelines that were overlooked, or if it was truly something along the lines of sabotage or some other form of unfortunate doings. But that is terrible to hear. I absolutely hate to hear that something like that happened, and I hope that the families will be well compensated for the loss of their loved ones who died in that workplace incident. But still, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And we shall, CK, and thank you very much for that support as well, once again. And this one is going to go to Havlin Tough. He said, what is this I read about an arrest of coup plotters a days ago in Ukraine?
I wouldn't really know. I've heard of that story before, and we were able to confirm it, but I didn't really look into it too much. Matthew, do you have any details?
I saw the article about it. It was sent to me by, I believe, Miss Disa. And it was basically one of those typical routine things of some pro-Russian people trying to like plot some type of like assassination of Zelensky or taking over the government. And it really got nowhere, and it was snuffed out in the very early stages.
Interesting. I hope that addresses it fairly well, because I think, Vito Lucina threw in a great live chat. I'll have to answer that in a second. But I still thank you so much for the support. And to answer that, I would say I wouldn't really know much, so Matthew's answer is probably a lot better than mine, because I really just looked at it and went, huh, and then I moved on. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And Vito Lucina said, let's see, have any of you two tried the game Humankind? I did. I wasn't really that big of a fan. I didn't really like how you just switched culture to culture from era. You know, like I wanted to pick a culture and just stick with it. You know, like Britain or Russia or Brazil or something like that. And you couldn't. Like you would pick like the damn Romans one turn, and then you become England the next. I didn't really like that, because it didn't really feel like you had like a cultural identity moving through the game. It just felt like you were jumping from place to place, and that felt a little odd to me. I liked being on the one track with the cultural thing. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you for asking a really interesting question, Vito. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Teslans, who puts in a 5 and says, a 5 for tech support. And thank you very much, Teslans, to donating for the tech support fund, and we appreciate it very much. And we also have a 5 here from David Richards, who puts in a USA flag and says, Happy Independence Day.
Hey!
And Happy Independence Day to you as well.
And Happy Independence Day. And thank you so much for the support and putting in some American flags. That was terrible. But with that, we're on to the next.
And this one goes to Chris, who puts in a 5 once again. He said, Enforcers, can we all agree that Boston Terriers are the best dogs? They're smart as whips. I think he meant to say Boston. It said Biston. But it said they are smart as whip, cute as hell, and full of love. And which dog is that? Can we see a picture?
Boston Terrier.
Oh, dear. Yeah, he looks very happy.
He does look happy. I mean, it looks pretty cute. I would say it's...
I gotta admit, I'm kind of biased to corgis, but this is an interesting dog.
This is an interesting dog, that I will say. But Matthew and me, I'm telling you what, once you have a corgi, you just can't love any other kind of a dog. Corgis are truly the most precious dog in the world. I'm sorry.
Look at that.
I mean, look at those precious critters. And look at that little cute puppy.
Man, these dogs are the best.
They really are. They are truly the best dogs. I mean, we before we came on stream tonight, the little corgis were out there, and we were petting them and playing with them and talking to them, and they always are just so sweet. They're so full of personality. Little Miss O'Work, he was a little sick today. Ended up throwing up a couple of times, but he kind of gets that through ebbs and flows. We're hoping that one day he eventually just gets better. We don't know if that's ever going to happen, but we're hoping. But still, thank you so much once again for support. Boston Terriers are sweet, but the biggest place in my heart for dogs is for corgis. I love them so much. And
look at that fluffy one to the right. You see that fluffy one right there? Look at that one right to the left of the picture at the top.
Left of the picture to the top. This one?
No, that one to the far right.
This one?
That one. Yeah, look at that.
Look at that one with the little butt. It's a little puppy. It's just like Shiba when she was a baby.
That's a sweet corgi.
Let me see here. Corgi Fluffy. Here we go. Here's a fluffy corgi.
Man, I just love all the corgis. They look so sweet.
These are actually rare genetically. If y'all didn't know that, you can't really get fluffy corgis normally. They're kind of like a freak occurrence genetically, but they're very, very pretty, and I think they're really cute looking. Like look at this one. Oh, isn't that precious looking? I mean, even the fluffies are precious and beautiful looking. I love them. But Boston Terriers aren't that bad either. Like, we went straight into fawning on corgis, but still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Merlin Moncure, who puts in a 5. It says, USA Merlin here, and the Merlin is a falcon, and is the second fastest animal in the world after the peregrine falcon.
And thank you so much for sharing that little fun fact with us about falcons. That's pretty cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next ones go to Rad Info, who puts in a 4, as well as Barry King, who puts in a 2, and Rally, who puts in a 1. And huge shout out to all three of y'all as well for supporting the channel. And we also have a 2 from Jaden Saxman yet again, and they put in a 2. And said, question for the Marmot, thoughts on capybaras?
Thoughts on capybaras? I don't think they're that bad. I don't think that bad at all. They're odd.
I don't like those things, really. I don't like them. I like marmots, but I don't like these things. Like, look at that.
I mean, it looks kind of like a big kiwi fruit, you know, with like a head.
Man, it looks like a big rat. They kind of looks like unbothered by everything. Like, look at that other picture just right at the one you picked. Man, that thing's unbothered. Like, it's like a big unbothered rat. Man, it's a hot dog, man, in rat form. He's already a rat.
I think they're all right. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not that great either. I mean, they're kind of okay. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much for giving support and asking for our opinion on the capybara. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Wojak said a giant rat. It is. It's like a big rat with like some fur or something like that, like some like different type of fur. I don't like those things at all. Like really, I don't know why they caught on so well either. They were everywhere for a while, and the memes were crazy about them. But anyways, moving on to our next one here, we have a 2 once again from Veteran RN, who said it's Veteran Royal Navy RN. Oh, and Royal Navy. I thought you were a registered nurse. I could have sworn it was registered nurse, like veteran nurse, but this is the Veteran Royal Navy, so a whole nother animal, and thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, and also, really cool to know that you're a veteran of the Royal Navy. That's actually a really cool thing. I love the Royal Navy, personally. The Royal Navy isn't what it used to be in its size and in brilliance, you know, of course, compared to its World War I height and its World War II height. But I still think that the Royal Navy is truly something to be admired. It has such a deep and rich naval tradition. It's an amazing, really, like I say about everything, it's the foundation of really all modern navies in the Western world, at least in their modern sense. And I got to say, thank you so much once again for support, and really cool to hear that you're actually a veteran of the Royal Navy. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
And we have one more super chat. This one is from Rusi Nasi, who puts in a 2. And says, Happy 4th of July to all, and love from Malaysia.
Oh, wow. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the happy 4th of July, all the way from Malaysia, all the way out here in Southeast Asia. That is incredibly cool. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that, that is our last super chat. Wait a minute, we got one more here. We got one from at the we got one from At the Edge Think Culture, who puts in a $2 donation and says a marsupial. I think it might be a marsupial.
Marsupial. Oh, they put
marsupial.
They put in marsupial. Like you see that marsupial?
I think it's marsupial.
Marsupial is spelled different, isn't it? Marsupial. Yeah, it's spelled different. See, marsupial. This is a marsupial, and then that's marsupial.
Maybe a spelling error.
Maybe so, but the capybara is a marsupial, I believe. It's a rodent, actually, not a marsupial. So it actually is in the family that is the same as rats. So yes,
it is a rat.
So it really is a giant rat, like as far as the classification goes. So Matthew is dead on the nail. It actually is a big rat, like pretty much. But still, very interesting observation, though. I thought it may have been a marsupial, but I was wrong. It's actually a rodent. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so we are now moving into, let's see here, hold on a second, let's see. Can't tell if someone's trolling in the live chat here. We'll have to keep an eye on them.
Hold up. Who is it?
Are they
Matthew?
trolling?
Who is?
Someone that says something about ignorance.
Ignorance of the reality of geography is amazing. The geo-idiocy
I'm not sure what to make of it.
is hilarious. My word soup. Like, even if that's not about us, please refrain from word soup. It doesn't look that good. And I know that is just trying to make yourself look intelligent. It doesn't mean you're intelligent. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to come off like it's aggressive or passive aggressive there, but it really is annoying to see word soup like that. I don't know if that's directed at us or what. But with that, we're moving on into the live chats. And before we do, we have a very finite amount of time. This stream has already gone on for 3 hours and 40 minutes, meaning that we are going overtime according to our usual stream schedule. And so we're going to be addressing the Morse code decoders, taking 3 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding this thing out. And so with that, Matthew, take it away.
All right, and the Morse code decoders tonight were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J. Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse for tonight says, Russian supply bases getting blown up look really pretty. It's kind of a very orange glow. And LLT, LSA. And is Russia doing the 4th of July fireworks for the U.S.?
Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. It's like, yeah, maybe so. Like, maybe they are. But still. Ding, 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 ding. Wait, hang on. Let me see if I can actually get my voice at a higher pitch here. Ding, 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 ding. Shh. That is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 861st day of the war. It is absolutely unbelievable to think y'all get that correct time and time again, and I'm very impressed about that. Good job. Amazing job. Incredible job, y'all. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Howard Turgell, who says, any new news on Cuba being armed?
No, we have not gotten any new news about Cuba being armed, but we have heard that the Chinese have listening posts set up around Havana meant to intercept signals that are being passed through the continental United States, which is a little concerning, but not any word on the weaponry, though. And so with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who says, have the Russian soldiers been told to treat the North Korean soldiers nicely?
I don't know if they have, and even if they have been told that, I have a feeling they're probably not, because they don't treat themselves nicely, so why would they treat outsiders nicely? That's probably how they'll be looking at it. But I don't really have high hopes for North Korean Russian relations on the battlefield. I have a feeling it's probably going to be pretty bad. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was lucky last person through in the lucky last question of the night?
And this viewer right here is Adam McLean. He says, is there still any evidence that Russian spies have infiltrated any of Ukraine's military, intelligence, or government?
Reread that one again really quickly.
He said, is there any evidence that Russian spies have infiltrated any of Ukraine's military, intelligence, or government?
I believe there has been some in the past where some have been arrested or found out by the SBU. I think there's probably some that's actively going on right now, but it's probably at very low levels of the government or possibly the military. If there is any at all. But I'm sure there is some, because there's probably also some pro-Ukrainian sentiments and possibly pro-Ukrainian operators that are inside of the Russian armed forces at the exact same time. And so with that, I hope that does...
Wait. Hold on real quick. Hold on, let's see here. I can't recall. Let's see here. Wyatt Logan said I might have missed his super chat. Let me see if I don't see it in the spreadsheet. Hold on just a second.
So I'm going to go through, check for it too.
Let's see. Wyatt Logan. Wait a minute. I think I did read that.
What does it say again?
It's about the General Dynamics ordnance and tactical systems.
Oh, yeah. We did cover that, Wyatt Logan. I said it was an absolute tragedy. OSHA would probably get to the bottom of it. But it seems as though like it may have possibly been a workplace accident. But if it was sabotage, OSHA would probably find out. So we did address that. I actually spent a little bit of a time addressing that. Maybe you were away from the keyboard. But it is in the question segment. Huh?
I said AFK.
Maybe. But still, thank you for the support, Wyatt Logan. We did address that. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and always being here with us. But, I'm glad we didn't miss it, because I was actually getting scared there, man. I was like, wait, did we miss one? Also, we have Neil Visnot, who threw in a 2 and said, Mobbit, I say! And Mobbit, you know what? We'll round out the stream on that. You know, we're going over time, but why not for an extra minute for the marmot? You know, like, we gotta have the marmot. Like, it's a tradition. And oh, hello there. Hey, it's the moment.
His name was Alan. Alan, welcome back. His name's Alan. He's from Britain.
Oh, Governor, would you like a rock? Oh man, I like that crystal rock. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm at a real rock.
He said, "Oh man, did someone say something about losing? Because can I have a piece of that?"
Oh man, I tell you what. But I love Alan the Marmot, and I gotta say, thank you so much for throwing in that little $2 super chat right there at the end, Neil Vizanon, because it does allow us to look at Alan the Marmot right as we're rounding out the stream. And you know what? I think it's a perfect way to round out the stream while we look at Alan the Marmot as we round out. And so I gotta say, Neil Vizanon, he said, you forgot me. I don't think we did. We're covering yours right now, Neil. What the hell? we're on the Marmot. Unless you're talking about another one. Hang on, let me check. Let's just check. Let's double check. Okay, Neil Vizanon.
Got him in here.
We got him in here? You sure? You double sure?
Yeah, I read it.
Just making sure. I just want to double check that we're not missing another one. Just in case. Yeah, we've read it. I'm seeing that one. We did read it. So we didn't miss you either, Neil. We did read that one out loud. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. And I got to say, it has been a massive honor and a massive pleasure to get to cover this news for every single one of y'all. We cannot overstate that enough. It has always been an honor to run this channel and get to cover the news for all of y'all. And we're going to keep doing that until the war ends. And then we'll keep doing that even beyond the war ending as we continue to move on into other things and cover other topics. But I got to say that we are massively appreciative and massively thankful for all of y'all watching this stream and really enjoying it tonight. If y'all did, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit that like button, and also make sure to comment after it becomes a video because we appreciate all of that. If you really enjoy the channel, make sure to remember that we will not be live tomorrow. We are live every single day of the week except for Monday. You can guarantee that unless if there is a channel holiday. And tomorrow is the 4th of July, which will be a channel holiday through and through. And so, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. We will not be live tomorrow, so we will see you all on, let's see, today is Wednesday, right, Matthew? So it'll be Friday. We'll see you.
It just turned Thursday.
Oh, yeah, it's Thursday right now. Damn, it's tough. We will see you all on the 5th of July, at least here in America, at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So that will be the next time the stream runs. So it'll be the day after tomorrow, although tomorrow is today already. It will be about 48 hours from now, just about. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care. Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, it's time to round out yet another stream. Y'all enjoy the 4th of July tomorrow. Have some fireworks and good old stuff like that. And don't go outside with the 9 and shoot it up in the air. Please don't do that. But anyways, with that, we'll see you all on Friday night, which is the 5th of July. We hope you all have a good holiday. And also with that, Slava Ukraine. Hiram Slava. Thank you all for another great stream. Get some rest, and we'll see you later. And good night.
Yes.